All right, folks, we are live again. I don't know why I'm doing that with my voice. Welcome back. Today, we're still talking about Jesus Cristo. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christo. Jesus on a cracker. Today's question is, was Jesus wise? That's what we're going to be examining today. Once the live stream shows up in front of my face, I can then start inviting people. I talk through this so that I keep you locked and entertained while I am doing my necessary sharing. It's not sarcasm. How's it going, everybody? Just, say anything to YouTube.
Blah, 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 blah.
Going good.
That's pretty good.
Try playing. It's fun.
Yeah.
Play is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just say plank. Yeah. Just say plank length, and people will think you're smart.
Plax length. Yes.
Yeah, Plax lengthian pluntoclio, something like that.
That's what I'm talking about.
Was Jesus wise? Come debate. There we go. Post. Did I really forget to do that again? There we go. Is that everything I need? Yeah. X.com. I need to invite everyone else. What am I doing? Someone by the name of Heather followed me. Thank you for the follow, Heather. I'm going to sing everything today. Wisdom is the ability to use knowledge, experience, and insight to make sound decisions and judgments. We are all rabbis. I could have said rabies.
Glad you caught up. You could have. Actually, I prefer if you did.
Was Jesus wise? Come debate. Boom. I said a boom, chicka boom.
Boom, chicka boom.
Well, in order to be able to answer that, Travis, I have to just allow you to graft onto me that Jesus existed.
Correct. And now you are mine. I own you.
All righty. Well, we are almost there. I'm almost ready here. Okay.
I'm grading you on your performance, so chop chop.
Fantastic. I do have some reading.
You know the scale I'm using? The Richter scale.
I love it.
Well, Richter was a brilliant pianist.
Seems appropriate.
Correct, sir.
Higher.
All right, I'm going to do my little fandangling doogie here. I'm getting a lot of feedback from your end there, parents.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say, when I was a little boy.
When I was just 9 years old, I knew that Jesus was a quantum equation. All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Like
last night, we went through the... Oh, I'm also hearing your mouse, I think, Thomas. I don't know why.
Ooh, that's weird.
So last night we talked about, was Jesus good? We tasked everyone to take their best stab at assessing Jesus based on their own articulable standards. And it was a lot of fun. And we really, someone wants to call in because they said Jesus is black. Okay, I'm going to give you, sir or madame, the Discord link so that you can come and join the call. Can I call in if my Jesus is black? Oh, I see. So what Jesus are we exactly talking about here? White Jesus or black Jesus? Whatever Jesus, whatever Jesus. And let's say cream colored or Asian Jesus. Let's say that.
Asian Jesus, yeah.
Live discussion here. Boom.
Okay. All inclusive.
Rock and roll. Okay, so we talked about we challenged people to articulate their own notions of good, bad, right, and wrong last night. Some people did well, some people need a lot of work, and that's fine. That's what this is all about. And today we're going to do the same with regards to wisdom. What the fuck is wisdom? Well, today we're going to be using the most general academic definition to kind of help guide this conversation today of wisdom. I just want to make sure I actually sent that out. Yes, I did. Okay, great. Which is, wisdom is the ability to use knowledge, experience, and insight to make sound decisions and judgments. So soundness would be referencing logically coherent decisions and judgment, things that make logical sense. We're really talking about rationality. So another way to think about it, wisdom is the ability to use knowledge, experience, and insight to make rational decisions. So let's say your goal is to maximize health, and then you're like, well, I think the wise thing to do to maximize health is to hit myself as hard as I can with a hammer in the head. That would be demonstrably irrational to that goal. It'd be pretty easy to demonstrate that. But if your goal was, let's say, my goal is to cause myself pain, so a wise way to do that, a rational way to do that, would be to take that hammer and smack myself in the head. That would almost certainly cause pain. So we're going to be dealing a lot with what rationality is, what it means to be rational with regards to like academic usages of wisdom. So I'm going to start off by giving a bit of a thorough answer. So within Pangburn philosophy, I have my moral quest, of course. You guys hear me talk about it all the time. Maximize well-being for myself and those around me. And by well-being, I mean physical, mental, and social health. But and that moral quest and well-being itself are included in the 6 Pangburn virtues and maxims. So I include well-being and the moral quest in my wisdom making. But the 6 Pangburn virtues and maxims are really there to serve and keep myself rational to that higher purpose, which is the maximization of physical, mental, and social health. So what I wanted to start with was first lay out how I view wisdom, give some examples, and then give you my assessment on whether Jesus was wise or not. I just have to click one more thing here. Okay, so first let's talk about fallibilism. So just so I don't get any background noise, Thomas, do you mind muting just while I do this?
Gotcha, yeah. Hang on one second.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. So fallibilism, the corresponding maxim in Pangburn philosophy is certainty is almost certainly unattainable. How does fallibilism cause me to act rationally or in a wise fashion towards my goal of maximizing physical, mental, and social health? Well, let's see what fallibilism does to physical health. Fallibilism has been shown to reduce chronic stress caused by rigid thinking. It encourages updating beliefs based on medical evidence, improves treatment adherence when evidence changes, makes people less vulnerable to health misinformation. Mental health reduces anxiety associated with needing absolute certainty, increases cognitive flexibility, lowers dogmatism, improves emotional regulation after being wrong, encourages lifelong learning, builds resilience following mistakes. How does fallibilism serve your social health? Makes disagreements less hostile, encourages curiosity instead of defensiveness, improves conflict resolution, increases intellectual humility, builds trust because people admit mistakes, facilitates scientific and democratic cooperation. So that's a general summary of how fallibilism serves my moral quest to maximize well-being for myself and those around me. Now let's look at well-being. Maximize well-being for yourself and those around you. The moral quest. So a focus on well-being and a focus on the moral quest from a physical health perspective, when reminding yourself to maximize well-being, this is going to encourage exercise, promote nutritious diets, prioritize sleep, reduce harmful substance abuse, supports preventable medicine, encourages safer environments. Mental health promotes happiness, reduces depression, reduces anxiety, encourages meaning and purpose, improves resilience, supports emotional stability. And social health strengthens families, improves cooperation, increases pro-social behavior, reduces violence, builds healthier institutions, and improves quality of life across communities. Let's look at communication. How does good faith and the corresponding maxim, good faith and helpfulness are the minimum requirements for fruitful dialectic. And the question is, well then, how does communication as a virtue with the corresponding maxim in Penguin philosophy keep you rational to the purposes of maximizing well-being? Physical health. Better communication improves healthcare outcomes. Patients disclose symptoms more accurately, reduces medical errors, improves workplace safety, facilitates emergency responses, encourages healthy relationships. How about good faith and helpfulness related to good faith, helpful communication related to mental health? Reduces loneliness, increases emotional validation, improves understanding, decreases unnecessary conflict, encourages perspective taking, strengthens emotional intelligence. Social health. Good faith, helpful communication is going to build trust, strengthen friendship, improve marriages, encourage cooperation, reduce polarization, create healthier public discourse. How about patience? How does patience, with the corresponding maxim, ultimate patience even in the face of detestable ideas, how does this serve physical, mental, and social health? Lowers stress hormones, reduces cardiovascular strain, encourages long-term healthy habits, improves impulse control, reduces aggressive behavior, supports healthier aging. Mental health. How does patience improve mental health? Improves emotional regulation, reduces anger, reduces impulsivity, builds resilience, improves frustration tolerance, encourages thoughtful decision-making. And social health makes conversations more productive, improves parenting, strengthens friendships, encourages forgiveness, reduces interpersonal conflict, allows difficult discussions without escalation. What about lightheartedness, the fifth Pangburn virtue, with the corresponding maxim, refine and express your sense of humor? So what does lightheartedness do for physical, mental, and social health? Let's look at physical health first. Laughter lowers stress hormones, may temporarily improve immune function. Yes, lightheartedness. Reduces muscle tension, improves pain tolerance, encourages relaxation, can improve cardiovascular function through positive effect. Mental health increases positive emotions, buffers against depression, reduces anxiety, helps cope with adversity, encourages optimism, increases creativity. And lightheartedness with regards to social health strengthens friendships, creates social bonding, increases likability, reduces social tension, improves teamwork, encourages forgiveness after conflict. And finally, with regards to the sixth Pangburn virtue, inspiration, let art and science inspire. So how does inspiration affect physical, mental, and social health? Inspires, with regards to physical health, inspires healthier lifestyles, encourages scientific literacy, promotes evidence-based healthcare, supports curiosity about nutrition and exercise, motivates long-term personal growth. Let's look at mental health. Increases awe, encourages curiosity, builds intrinsic motivation, enhances creativity, provides meaning, protects against burnout, encourages lifelong intellectual engagement. Social health, with regards to inspiration. What can inspiration by way of art and science do for social health? Connects people through culture, encourages innovation, advances civilization through science, builds appreciation for diverse perspectives, strengthens educational communities, and promotes collaboration across cultures. So, as a I don't think we need to do that.
I
summary.
appreciate diverse perspectives because it shows me that there are numerous ways of being wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, and then the question today that we're examining is whether Jesus was wise or not. So, when I look at the six Pangburn virtues and maxims, which are the things that I use to keep myself rational to my overarching purpose to maximize well-being for myself and those around me, this is my current assessment. So when it comes to fallibilism, I give Jesus quite a low score when it comes to whether or not Jesus was wise by this standard. So Jesus generally speaks with certainty and divine authority. Truly, I say to you, rarely expressing uncertainty or revising his views. If he believed himself to speak for God, this contrasts with epistemic humility, which is kind of at the heart of fallibilism. When it comes to well-being, was Jesus wise by the standard of physical, mental, and social health? He promotes, and I give him a mixed assessment here. So he promotes forgiveness, generosity, compassion, care for the poor, and love of enemies, all of which can enhance well-being. On the other hand, teachings about eternal punishment, self-denial, abandoning family, and prioritizing devotion to God over ordinary human relationships can reduce well-being for some people. So he gets generally a mixed assessment from me there. Communication. Was Jesus, a good faith, helpful communicator, which is something I see as important wisdom. Jesus was an exceptionally effective communicator. His use of parables, memorable sayings, questions, and vivid imagery has influenced billions of people. However, he also intentionally spoke in parables that, according to some passages, obscured his message from certain audiences. But even with that critique, I give him a very high wisdom assessment with regards to communication. Patience, mixed here. He often displayed remarkable patience with followers, sinners, and critics. Yet there are episodes such as the cleansing of the temple, the cursing of the fig tree, and sharp condemnations of opponents that suggest limits to that patience. So it's kind of a mixed score there. Lightheartedness, low to mixed. There was a bit. The Gospels contain irony, wit, and memorable hyperbole, but humor is not a prominent feature of Jesus's recorded teaching. The overall tone is serious and often apocalyptic rather than playful. So for Jesus to be more wise through the lens of lightheartedness, I would want to see him embody a more lighthearted posture in general. That would mean being more playful. Like if we look at the subcategories of lightheartedness in Pangburn philosophy, which, by the way, my book is almost finished and hopefully will be out there available this fall. We have a lot of live events this fall, and I'm hoping to have the book available then. So yeah, I would want to see a more lighthearted posture. If we look at the subcategories of playfulness, optimism, and positivity, what was Jesus, generally quite positive in some senses. He was, but there was some of that more negative stuff that we went over before. Was Jesus optimistic? Yeah, it seemed to be quite optimistic. Was he very playful? Probably not as much as he could have been in the way he teaches. So that's a low to mixed score in lightheartedness. Inspiration. Let art and science inspire. So I give him a mixed score. Jesus was not, really a man of the sciences, the kinds of things that would have been available at this time that would be considered like empirical learning, things born of Aristotle's empiricism. There's not good evidence of that. Was Jesus, did Jesus demonstrate artistic inspiration through some of the parables and through some of the poetic ways of speaking? Sure. So the question at the end of this is, do I think Jesus was wise based on all of my standards? It's kind of a mixed bag, but because he doesn't score very high in many of these categories, including the maximization of health, physical, mental, and social health, i.e. well-being, I give him a moderate score with regards to wisdom. And typically with a moderate score, I tend to not give the label of wisdom or great wisdom or label someone as wise if they're in that moderate realm. So for me, I would say I wouldn't necessarily call Jesus wise. So that's just to get us kicked off today. What does everyone else in the room think? Thomas, do you have a view to share?
An expansive one.
Okay.
I don't want to go too far. Like, I'm going to let other people jump in. But I mean, just in general, we can go over what wisdom is and is not. You covered it pretty well, but there are different dimensional axes to wisdom. I believe anyway, this is how I operate within my system. So I would, wisdom is not intelligence, because high IQ people can see clearly and still detonate their lives with premature action.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just agreeing with you there.
All right. Well, let's let Thomas roll. Go ahead, Thomas.
You're good. No, it's totally good. Wisdom is not information. A person can know 50 ethical theories and still treat people like furniture, right?
Yes.
So that is one of the biggest issues right there. Oh, I have these beautifully coherent ethical systems. Cool. Do you live them through your body with other people? That's going to be my question. Wisdom is not certainty. Duh. Wisdom is not age. Some people become elders and some people become antique toddlers.
Right.
So, wisdom is not calmness either. Like, calm can be wisdom, but it's, it can also be avoidance with niceness, which is trash. That's not healthy for us or anybody else around us. Wisdom is not obedience. That's a big one, is that, this matters specifically for Jesus, because obedience can serve wisdom in certain ways, but obedience to any type of system that would deny someone's health, flourishing, well-being aspects, I don't think that's wisdom. That's just surrender with hymnal books. So wisdom is not having the right values in abstraction. This is the big part. A value that cannot survive timing, cost, capacity, and repair between agents is still immature. That's the biggest problem. So I would say that wisdom is the integrated capacity to perceive reality truthfully, interpret it proportionally, care about what matters within these systems, anticipate the consequences, honor your own limits and others, and act with timing and preserve the ability to repair, because we are relational species. Therefore, we have to be able to psychologically repair between each other, because if not, there would be no Christianity. There would be nothing if we could, if people couldn't apologize and come back and rebuild a relationship or try to be fallible, like what you said, basically. So if I were to keep going, we can talk about the 6 dimensions of wisdom that I've
keep going. Yeah.
decided on. Yeah. So in general, epistemic wisdom, right? There's different lenses here. There's different epistemic lenses, but this one is an epistemic lens of an epistemic lens, which is interesting. Knowing without worshiping your knowing. That's a big thing. I am a finite creature. That's the biggest part. This is what causes people to go into debate bro stuff, ideology capture, certainty inflation, which Travis already talked about. I see more than everybody else, therefore I may dominate everyone else. Yeah, that's trash. A wise person can say, this is my best current model, without turning that into the throne. It's very important. In terms of the second lens, I would say embodied wisdom. This is what I was talking about, neurophenomenological embodiment. We're living our philosophy through our bodies rather than just having the abstract coherent systems that may or may not map to reality in certain ways. So can this nervous system actually live this truth right now? This is about capacity, right? So if somebody says, I need to set a boundary for this other person, but their body may not, tolerate conflict or abandonment fear, or perhaps financial loss or social backlash. So, wisdom wouldn't say here, you hypocrite, you know better. Wisdom would say the inside arrived before I had the scaffolding. And that's very important, is we have to have that scaffolding. The third axis, these are dimensions axes. They're epistemic lenses, and because this is the way that we live our lives, is through many different epistemic lenses, through narrative, through all kinds of different ones, right? So here's one of the most important ones, because we are a social species: relational wisdom, truth without unnecessary injury. So if can this truth be delivered in a way that preserves dignity and repair? We care about agency, dignity, and repair. We know that based in cognitive science, biology, and everything, non-coercion is the best way for people to operate between each other as best we can. Non-interference is not the same as non-coercion. Interference is sometimes a good thing because systems have already imposed on people's lives, and therefore we must interfere to be a moral agent to help someone who says, help me. Right? That's very important. So this is not always softness, not always gentleness, right? We have to have teeth sometimes. So a person who says true things in ways that reliably destroy trust and humiliate people or can collapse other people's agency, that's not automatically wise. It may be correct in terms of a rightness, wrongness thing, but I don't know if I would call that wise. It depends, patience is included in here. So
you know what that
I'm going to go ahead and
finish
finish it.
You know what that
go ahead,
reminds me of, Thomas? Is when we have some science communicators out there who will shit on people for getting something wrong or being wrong about something scientifically. And then a question will be asked, well, is it wise to be shitting on people like that? And that would depend
Aren't you a public educator?
Yeah, that would depend on ultimately on one's goals. If they say that my goal is to dominate, my ultimate goal is to dominate and destroy anti-science, and there's no transcending goal above that, then they could say, yeah, bullying people who are engaging in anti-science is perfectly rational to that purpose. And that is true. And that is where you have to go to that purpose and ask the question, is that purpose wise? So then we need a way of assessing that purpose. And then someone's going to ask, well, how could you call my transcending purpose, unwise? And then you are eventually going to be asked to give a normative argument for things that they should be finding more important than their current transcending purpose. But please finish and continue.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. I agree on that, because public educators, right? This is the whole point. They're full of crap too. in some ways. We all are, and we need to be able to fallibalistically understand, hey, I am incorrect in these ways, and I need to update. I need to, change the way that I see this, so that I can operate better as a human. So temporal wisdom is really important. That's one of the best lenses here, because it's knowing when to move with wisdom, right? Because wisdom is knowledge and all these other things moving through life. And so timing and patience is not cowardice. It's part of the truth here. It's part of truth. So you're basically saying, if I acted on this wisdom today that I have, would I destabilize myself or other people beyond recovery? If yes, capacity is not ready. If no, the integration window is open. So it's just about timing. It's, self and other violence in this sense says, I know better, so I must act now. That's the trap. Wisdom says, I see the direction, now I can build the bridge and the scaffolding. Steps instead of, Michael Jordan leaps. It's really important, because we know in cognitive science that stepping things out, we just know from general understanding of day-to-day human living that stepping things out is a very good idea. And this helps us with wisdom and timing and patience. The fifth one I would say is ethical wisdom. That's the whole agency, dignity, care, and repair part. We are a social species, Wisdom is not merely strategic cleverness. Some people think that. Probably a lot of world leaders, I would imagine, think that. A manipulator can be strategic. A tyrant can be patient, and a cult leader can read people well. Wisdom requires an ethical axis. Does this preserve or enhance agency? Does this preserve the human dignity? Does this reduce preventable suffering? Does this keep repair between social species possible? Does this keep truth contact with the world alive? And does this protect the vulnerable without becoming domination? That's an important one.
Yeah.
That is why wisdom has to be tied to our human operation, all of it, the whole field of a human. And the last one, and then I'll let you go. Repair wisdom. Man, this is so important. We're social species, right? So when failure happens, it's going to happen, right? Can we name it, repair it, learn from it, and return with more coherence overall for our ethical systems, for our understanding of our relational systems? So I would say that, that wisdom prefers repair over purity, because repair is how real organisms and real relationships survive time. The reason I brought up purity is because of Jesus, and we'll get there in a moment. But wisdom is not the same as clarity. That's one of the biggest things here. Yeah. The wisdom question is, can you live that truth without destroying yourself or others?
Yeah, this is fantastic stuff. Thank you, Thomas. The big question I have for you here, and is with regards to the ethical, the things you find wise from an ethical perspective. Is that not, at the end of the day, the deciding arbiter of the rest of those categories you listed? Because
correct.
Yeah, because someone is going to say at the end of the day, well, why do you think this, epistemic standard is wise? Well, because it serves, it like at the end of the day, someone will say, well, because it corresponds, this particular epistemic system corresponds with reality when it comes to truth. It's interested in predictable modeling, like science is a way of knowing. And someone say, well, then why would you want that? It's like, well, at the end of the day, it sounds like, based on the ethics you just laid out, Thomas, that all of those things, emphasizing repair, emphasizing non-coercion, it seems like all of that falls into the well-being model of physical, mental, and social health. So it sounds like you're in service of that as well. Albeit yes. you are listing some important aspects, like someone might add consent to your list as well, something really important Correct. To physical, mental, and social health. Yeah. Very great. I love it. I love all that. Very high resolution. Perry, do you have something to add or question? I would. Before we go anywhere, Thomas.
I was going to ask
your answer. Your answer for today's question, based on all of your ideas of wisdom, even if you're giving a general ballpark umpire answer, was Jesus wise?
Okay, this is where I would have to get really specific, because which Jesus? The historical Jesus, the literary Jesus, the divine Jesus? There's also there's a bunch of them. Go ahead.
Let's start with first, and then we can provide other answers, because what I did first was reference Jesus, the person that I think actually existed, not
Historical Jesus.
historical Jesus, not Jesus
Mhm.
related to any god or anything like that. But
Right.
what do you think about the historical Jesus? For me, just to reiterate, I'm like, I think he was maybe a bit more than moderately wise. And then here's something I'm thinking though, which may affect my answer, is that once we apply like the historical layer to like how Jesus, the historical Jesus functioned in that particular era, when,
Mhm.
I think within that era, he would have been a wise man. But for me, assessing him from my perspective in the here and now, based on my virtues and maxims, still kind of moderate to maybe a little bit more wise than moderate. But I'm starting to think that if I take into consideration, which I probably should, the historicity, that he is probably a wise man. But anyways, continue.
Really quickly, I mean, just in general, if we're talking about the historical Jesus and not the literary or the other ones that I could bring up, yes, there is wisdom there, of course, but that doesn't mean Jesus is wisdom incarnate. I mean, the love your enemies is potentially wise. Turn the other cheek, potentially wise, is anti-retaliation, but there's maybe a capacity failure there. Care for poor and imprisoned, deeply wise. Hate family to follow me, very dangerous. Eternal
Yeah.
punishment, anti-wisdom, and fulfill the law, contextually complex if human. So I would say that he's likely wise in some ways and extremely limited in others. So I mean, I would probably give him, based on today's standards, I wouldn't give him hardly any at all. But back then, the agape love archetype and all of that, if it is true that he said a lot of the things in the Gospels back then, yeah, there's some wisdom there. I'd probably give him like for back then, probably like a 6 or a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, you know
because
what?
he's teaching in parables and things. I would say 6. Let's go 6 out of 10.
I can't go higher than 6, because what kind of wise man is permitting demons to enter into a herd of pigs which rush to the sea and die, as opposed to some other mechanism of ridding demons away? Like what kind of madman would curse the fig tree for not producing fruit in the off season? Like this, these are the kinds of things that really work against me really being able to call Jesus a wise man. So I would say, was he wiser than the average person? Yes. So yeah, I'm probably there a 5.5 or a 6.
2,000 years ago, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, like people were barbaric when Jesus was around. So Jesus was probably a saint in many ways, because he was like, hey, this person is hungry. We should probably feed them, right?
Yep.
This is when people were getting crucified on a regular basis.
So
that
the
world was just barbarism.
Yeah, and I think that would show. And then one second, Peter. And then I think that would show that like we discussed the historical Jesus yesterday, like I came to the conclusion that despite all these shortcomings, Jesus was a good person. And I think outlining all that good and how that good would have, trying to get that kind of good to manifest in the age that the historical Jesus likely lived in, that's a lot of good. But would a truly wise person do some of that other insane shit? I don't think so. I think they would have a hard time stomaching cursing the fig tree for not producing fruit in the, in the non-fruit producing off season.
I mean,
so
this is, just really quick, this is important. The wisdom of Jesus is real when it protects vulnerable humans, breaks those status games that he didn't like about the higher up classes being, jackasses, and interrupts revenge and deepens care. He did do those things. But we're talking about the historical Jesus, right? If he said those things. Yeah. The wisdom of Jesus fails where it demands obedience over conscience, loyalty over attachment, punishment over repair, and divine authority over human flourishing and well-being. That is my moral judgment.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Peter, go ahead, and then we'll go to Perry after that.
Yeah, I mean, considering there are 4 Gospels, Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John, all the messages are, usually put in a fairly serious way. Now, from my experience with people that are capable of talking to a crowd, that you have to have a grasp of humor, or else you will lose the crowd. So, where is there any even the tiniest amount of humor with
Yeah.
that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because
Yeah.
I know, because I deal with these people all the time. I know how crowds work. So
You do.
either it was deleted
Yeah.
or it's complete bollocks.
Yeah,
Okay?
you're outlining, Peter, the score I gave earlier. You might not have been here yet, but with regards to lightheartedness, with regards to
I did, yes.
okay,
Yeah, but
yeah,
I mean, that's not what I was talking about. But what I'm actually asking about is, if it was there, why was it gone?
yeah, yeah, I think it would be wise to understand, like, for example, if we want to look at someone like Sadhguru, for anyone who's familiar with Sadhguru, is a 10 out of 10 with regards to lightheartedness. Very playful, very positive, very optimistic human being. That's what, if you think lightheartedness is wise, and it's made wise in my view because of its effect on physical, mental, and social health. If you think that's wise, where is the evidence of Jesus embodying a lighthearted nature as opposed to being quite heavy-hearted in the way that he was? Probably this idea of eternal torture in hell, I would call it a bug in his mind, not a feature, that he was trying to deliver onto people. Perhaps it can be difficult to maintain a lighthearted posture with that kind of ideology in your mind. But yeah, I mean,
I don't think it would have been. I think it had to have been there if it happened at all.
oh, you're saying that perhaps it just wasn't recorded. If Jesus actually existed, it might have not made it into the books.
Absolutely, yeah. Because it's strange that some of it was, but that the guy was completely devoid of humor, devoid in 4 Gospels. That he didn't crack one fucking joke.
I don't think that there's any good reason to suspect that it was there at some point, or that Jesus really was this kind of slap-happy, kind of funny guy. I think he was much more serious and heavy-hearted about his mission.
Yeah, the messages do seem quite heavy-hearted. Let's bring Perry in. Perry, let's get your assessments of what you heard so far. Then I'm desperate to hear your views on wisdom. Just for everyone who's joined us now, welcome everyone on YouTube. You can join us on Discord and join the live conversation right now. It's free to join. You just have to personally give me your credit card numbers and bank codes and social insurance number and all of your personal film reel and your phone, all that stuff, and then you can join. No, you don't have to give me any of that. Just join. But just keeping in mind today, I did provide an academic general definition of wisdom. Wisdom is the ability to use knowledge, experience, and insight to make sound decisions and judgments. Really, what we're often talking about from an academic lens, and not always, just in a general sense, is rationality. Wisdom being somewhat similar to how we view rationality. So if someone has an articulable purpose of maximizing well-being, just to give another example, and by well-being they mean physical, mental, and social health, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to maximize well-being for myself, and then they put their head down in a homemade guillotine and cut their own head off, then that would be antithetical behavior towards their well-being in a very seemingly absolute sense. So that would not be rational behavior. But if they were, if they had a headache and they want to be rational to their purposes of maximizing well-being to themselves, and they know that one extra strength Advil tends to help alleviate the pain and the symptoms of their headache, and they take one, that would be rational behavior to those purposes. But yes, go ahead, Perry. The floor is yours.
What I thought you were going to say is someone who has a headache, they can just go to the guillotine and they won't have a headache.
Yeah. Well, they would stop suffering. They would die. Yes,
I
Jordan.
mean,
Yeah,
not
but
a
they
terrible
wouldn't
solution to a
be.
headache.
Yes, Jordan.
Yeah.
But they would no longer be being, so there's no chance for well-being. Yeah, exactly.
The guillotine is a very Cartesian type of thing because it separates the mind and the body so completely. What I didn't hear in that definition, at least specifically, was that there's a goal or purpose or telos. I know it said to make sound decisions and judgments, but we can make decisions that are irrational to an explicit purpose, which I would deem as unwise. So even though it may fit all of those, using knowledge to make a decision,
Yeah,
it may not necessarily, at least how I use it in a philosophical and colloquial sense, meet what I would deem to be wise.
yeah. I mean,
Uh,
we're going to have competing notions, though, right, Perry? When it comes to wisdom, so like
Yeah.
throughout all
yep,
philosophy,
that's why I said I wouldn't. Yeah, I
yeah,
wouldn't
exactly.
deem it based on my.
There
Yeah.
are, but I would say your gripe at that point would not be with the rationality of the pursuit. Your gripe would be with the purpose, right?
The purpose or the goal or the
Yeah.
telos.
So,
right.
so that's why I think it's important that, if someone's to say, Hitler was so unwise, and then you say, well, why do you say Hitler was unwise? They're like, well, if you and let's say they start critiquing the Holocaust or whatever, or how the Holocaust could have been done better and more effectively. So that would kind of be like making a critique towards the rationality itself, whether or not he was even wise within his own system of pursuits.
Right.
Or someone, and just and this is more for the audience because I know you know this, or someone could be saying, nothing with regards to what Hitler was doing was wise because fundamentally he believed X that gave rise to these dogmatisms or these purposes that were just because they were acting antithetically towards his own health and the health of those around him, let's say, that just means that they were bad purposes or, and by that you could say because they didn't take into consideration the health of himself or the health of those around him, mainly Jews and enemies, then someone could say, yeah, that those purposes are unwise just right to begin with.
Yep, you nailed it. I was going to smuggle in what I would deem to be a wise purpose, which would be health. But you said it well because I'll bite the bullet and I'll say it. Hitler was wise given his purposes. I think he achieved a lot of the goals that he intended to do. There's probably, I'm sure you could think of some things where he made a mistake or he said he was going to do something and it didn't happen.
Military decisions he made that were just batshit, retarded,
But
in my definition of wisdom, I would be careful about saying that Hitler was, good for repair or good for anything like that. You know what I mean? So wisdom, repair, and all those things are included in wisdom for me.
So
I know
I'm just using the definition that we've stated here. And so you got me thinking about Hitler, and we're supposed to be thinking of Jesus, but there's a good joke you made there. So let's see. I wanted to say something last night, but because we were talking about was Jesus good, and a lot of the things that I would deem to be good, I think Jesus did do. For example, things like charity. Oh, by the way, I want to preface saying we have to talk about the historical Jesus because the divine Jesus is like closer to a 0 out of 10 than he is a 6, in my opinion.
With
Yeah.
regards to wisdom, yeah,
With regards
Yeah.
to wisdom, he has
and
all of
ethics.
the power. He has all of the power to hear not just like a handful of blind people. He has the power to just pick more than just 12 disciples to have him to teach and understand his message. So I think the historical, which of course the Christians won't make that distinction between the historical and divine, but I am right now. So the historical Jesus, um, he, what would I give him? You know, I think that he had some stated purposes, like spreading the word or charity, as I mentioned. And he went through with those things and he took the proper actions, did the proper means to achieve that end. There are a lot of, now I imagine the historical Jesus as a purpose isn't to obfuscate or be ambiguous. And if clarity is a purpose that the historical Jesus had, I think that he was unwise to serving that purpose in many aspects, many contradictory passages in the Gospels. We brought up Matthew 5:17-20 last night, and how there's a whole bunch of apologetics that go behind it. And so I imagine, yeah, again, this is historical and not divine. Again, if you're the divine Jesus, you can transcend all of that stuff with cultural language and whatnot. Anyways, let's wrap up, and I want to hear what you guys want to say. I'll wrap up by saying, I think that he was pretty wise, maybe above half, over a 5, I would
Yeah.
say. I have a big issue with the clarity and ambiguity thing. But things like charity and other things that I would deem to be good as well, helping the weak, right? I'm a Socratic. I think that justice is the advantage of the weak. So I would agree with those purposes. And I think that social cohesion, he also, you guys talked about family division, which that would be negative to social health. Anyway, I'm now
Yeah.
just bouncing ideas
No,
left and right. So
No,
let's
that's
hear what
good.
you
You're
guys
good.
have.
There are new things that come up in my mind as each of us
Yeah.
go through this.
Yeah.
We do have a I do want to bring share the mic around a little bit. We do have a new member, Clauge 89.
Mhm.
Do you have anything to share? Welcome, by the way.
Welcome.
Howdy. We can't hear you if you're talking.
Oh.
You gotta
Can you
make
guys
sure
hear me now?
Yeah, we can
There we
hear you
go.
now. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, no, I just found you guys, and just wanted to, I was listening in, and for me, from my perspective, I do believe that Jesus was a wise person. The reason being is the fact that, we see what happens to the historical Jesus. He gets stoned for making certain claims of him, of him being God, and we see, the historical account of his death and resurrection. He didn't die for teaching, um, you know, specific. He didn't die for what he taught. He died for what he claimed he was. And so when we talk about wisdom, and I know there were some mentions around contradictions, and you guys talked about the fig tree. I think it's only fair to argue if there's true wisdom if you understand exactly what he's trying to say when he goes and he curses the fig tree. And so a part of this, in order for us to actually understand the wisdom, you have to come from a theological perspective, because if you look at it from a secular perspective, of course anybody that will look at that will say, yeah, that's not wise. But if you look at it from a theological perspective and you understand what he's trying to do, and what he's trying to convey, right?
What do you think? What do you think
that's-
he's trying to do and convey with regards to the fig tree?
So yeah, so the fig tree, right? So one of the things about the fig tree is that, because the fig tree had the presence of leaves, that meant that the fig tree was supposed to also bear fruit, meaning that it was supposed to be fruitful. So the fig tree is a representation of Israel, is a representation of the Jewish nation. And in order for us to understand him, why he curses the fig tree, well, you have to know what the fig tree represents. And you have to also then understand that a fig tree bears fruit, that a fig tree that has leaves should bear fruit. And when he saw that fig tree, it had leaves, but it didn't have the appearance of fruit.
Yeah, but isn't it the case that it wasn't it was not the season for figs? Isn't that like one of the main aspects of the Gospel of Mark 11:12-14? Jesus was hungry, saw a fig tree with leaves, looked for fruit, found none, for it was not the season for figs, and said, may no one ever eat fruit from you again. And then,
I would have to go back and look at that
yeah,
piece
I'm looking
of scripture.
at it right here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And you said it comes from Mark, right?
Yeah, this is Mark 11:12-14. Yeah. Because the main critique. And then we'll go to Perry. But just like the main critique here is that it appears that Jesus is being impulsive because he's hungry, disappointed, immediately curses the tree. This resembles a frustration towards a tree that it wasn't the tree's fault. Mark explicitly says it was not the season for figs. The tree behaved exactly as expected. Punishing it appears irrational or unjust. That's why I bring that up with regards to showing a lack of wisdom. But yeah, Perry, what's your question?
I don't want to lose this what just happened, and I don't mean to be an asshole, though I'm aware that I am. But you are giving this apologetic here, saying that the fig tree is about Jacob and the fruits that will come from it. But Travis just read like the direct part of this fig tree passage, and you were like, you put your hand to your chin and you said you'll have to go back and read it. Where did you get that apologetic from? Did you get that from a natural reading of the fig tree passage, or is this just like something you looked up online real quick? Like, it sounds like you don't know the passage, but we just read the part where Jesus cursed the tree. That's like the main thing, and your response was, well, I need to go back and read it. So this is just me being like an asshole, asking how do you know that this is a figurative thing about Jacob rather than just Jesus being an idiot blaming a fig tree for not bearing fruit out of season.
Yeah, and it looks like our new friend Clauge89 just got a phone call, so I'm sure they'll be back.
But that question is recorded, so that's good. That's a great question.
No.
May I also really quickly say, just very quickly, I'm sorry. So yes, in theology and historical textual criticism about the Bible, there are literary ways to interpret Bible passages. Just like if we were to go back to the slaughter of the Amalekites, that was war poetry, right? So there's a lot of bravado and a lot of guy stuff, if you want to call it that, right? And some of it wasn't meant to be taken in certain ways. But then people are told to do a natural reading. So do we take it as it was originally written, or do we take it with the natural reading? Which interpretation should we take on any point in the Bible? That is one of the biggest problems. Bart Ehrman talks about this. Many Christian theologian scholars talk about this. So whenever we say, well, that's not what it meant, well, there's like 10,000 different people who think those things mean different things, right? Yeah. And that's the issue.
Of course, that's the art of apologetics and hermeneutics.
Exactly, that's why apologetics is there.
The confidence behind Clauge's hermeneutic on this, but he seemed that he wasn't sure of the passage when we read the direct thing of Jesus cursing the tree. So Maybe I'm
and-
reading too much into it, but
Yeah, and I think what Chris, we now know our new friend's name is Chris. I think what Chris is referring to is the top most common Christian apologetic with regard to the fig tree issue. So symbolic judgment of Israel, most common scholarly view. This is probably the most dominant interpretation. Mark sandwiches the story around Jesus cleansing the temple. So that we have Jesus curses the tree, Jesus cleanses the temple, the tree is found withered. Many scholars see the fig tree representing Israel or its religious leadership. Leaves represent outward religiosity. No fruit represents lack of justice and righteousness. The miracle becomes a living parable rather than anger at a tree. So this is how, people are trying to make this work. And this is, like we just talked about, this is what apologetics does.
But
so
I don't want to argue the scholars vicariously through Chris. I want to hear how Chris got to when, as I mentioned it. So maybe we need to read the passage again for the room to so we all know. But I digest.
Yeah, and I mean, we can also give our answers based on both meanings or different meanings, right? So it's like, so if that was what was trying to be conveyed, was it wise to convey it in the way that it was conveyed in Scripture? Because it seems to not be very clear, right? So there's
ambiguity
a lack of
is clarity of purpose for Jesus, right?
Exactly.
So this was not clear.
Yeah, so there would be a lack of wisdom there. Just like if a Indian guru is sitting there saying, if you are not one sitting on the quantum when the movement hits you, then you are doing a dirty deed. Now, what the guru is trying to say is that if you're not sitting on the toilet when you need to take a shit, then you're doing something dirty. There's easy ways for that to be misinterpreted, right? So it's like, it to me, a mark of wisdom when we're looking at good faith, helpful communication, part of that means that we are using language in a clear, coherent way that doesn't leave, especially if this is a really important thing, all of this, need for further interpretation to try to make it work by way of this greater narrative that really isn't directly referenced. So yeah, that's a problem. Does anyone else have anything to add, or feel free to unmute? Yeah,
I was going to say, we know the four Gospels were written within 300 years after the supposed death of Christ, or
so so Mark was considered written first between 70 and 100 AD, and then they have pieces of John called on papyrus scripts called many pieces that are many years later. We could go through all that, but yes.
So whatever research that these guys did or didn't do, they would have been dealing with, even if they were as close as they got, would be one-liners. They would have constructed stories around a particular line or a one sentence, if it existed at all. So, have you ever seen Jurassic Park, the first movie?
Yes, of course.
Yes, and I remember. So, how much frog DNA are we really dealing with here? So,
I love it. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't see very much wisdom in the way that the story's delivered, in the way that Jesus apparently behaved. This isn't clear. So yeah, I mean, even if we grant what Chris was saying about the apologetic answer here, it doesn't seem like a wise way to deliver information. It doesn't seem like a wise way to teach. So yeah.
So let's look at Buddhist teaching. Look, let's say Eastern philosophy in general, which Jesus embodied some of. So somebody who was brought up in a different culture, who wouldn't have understood that, And let's say there's the story about Jesus being a monk that went east and came back to Jerusalem as a kind of a Buddhist, right? Let's just put it that way. And let's say that those stories actually, or that his preachings, gained resonance and a following at that. Those writing about it from where they were, their perspective wouldn't have got it. Do you understand?
Yeah,
They wouldn't have understood it, and they would have immediately reinterpreted it back to the philosophies that they were familiar with. Is that a possibility?
I mean, I guess it's
If we're playing
possible.
in the realm of if we're playing in the realm of like possible pasts and all that kind of stuff, I mean it's dependent on the cultural lens, right? I mean anybody who's looking
Exactly.
to
That's what I'm talking about. It's the cultural lens. Was it
Mhm.
put back into the cultural lens of where those writers were, as
I mean,
opposed to
yeah.
what? Yeah, I'm just throwing it out there as a vague possibility.
hypothetical. Yeah, hypothetical. I got you. It's cool to entertain that kind of possibility space, but in terms of the things that influence Jesus and Judaism and all that kind of stuff, Egypt and all this, it's all through different cultural lenses, right? I mean, the West has a completely different cultural lens than, I'm sure there are plenty of Eastern folks out there who are Christian, right? And they're going to probably interpret it differently, not completely differently because it's pretty worldwide and the internet exists, but yes, exploring these possibility spaces is cool. I don't know if, and I don't think this is the case, but I don't think Jesus ever had any contact with Buddhism. I mean, we at least don't have any written record of that.
Jesus disappeared when he was 12 and he came back in his late 20s. So I mean, he kind of fucked off for a bit, like.
Okay.
He did fuck off for quite some time.
Yeah. Hey, sorry guys. I got a phone call. My wife called me, so I needed to answer that.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
What
back
was
to what you guys we were saying earlier about Mark. Looking at the passage, it wasn't the season for figs, and I, there's a broken rule there, right? If we're talking about, hey, it wasn't the season for figs, but since there was a fig tree and it had leaves, the expectation would be that there would be fruit. If we're looking at from that perspective, and this is just one instance of we're talking about if we're saying Jesus wasn't wise. I know you guys mentioned earlier. Someone had mentioned earlier about the when Jesus casts out the demon from the Gadarene demoniac, right? And the demons go into the
pigs.
into the pigs. So Jesus does it at the request of the demons. It's not his idea.
But
right?
why would he do?
He
Why would he accept the request of the demons?
Well,
that's
okay.
Yeah.
I
think it's unwise to do that.
So,
and if you believe, which most Christians are Trinitarian, right? Are you Trinitarian? Do you believe Jesus was God? Okay, then
yes,
Jesus.
I do believe Jesus
Okay,
was God.
Then Jesus had the power of God. Jesus could cast those demons into blades of grass instead of pigs.
Okay, so what's the rationale behind why casting them out into pigs is bad is unwise?
He caused 2,000 pigs apparently to die a drowning death. That's just immoral behavior. And when you are all powerful and you have the opportunity to instead deal with the demons in a way that doesn't cause unnecessary suffering, and it's unnecessary because you're apparently all powerful, then you come up with like me sitting here as an evolved 21st century ape can come up with a more wise, more moral thing to do than apparently the God of the universe could do. So, it's like
quickly.
Yeah, go ahead, Thomas.
Sorry, if I may, as far as I know, from my studies, in historical textual criticism. I'm not a professional in that, but we do not have we have evidence for Jesus as far as the atheist and theist scholars are concerned. Excuse me, that that Jesus was an apocalyptic preacher around that time, doing doing the same things that that apocalyptic tradition was doing. We don't have any evidence of this demon pig stuff. I can be more accurate, but I'm just going through it fast. Other than the literary tradition through the Bible. So that,
we're just doing the internal critique of what like Trinitarian believing Christians would believe about that demon casting into pigs thing, right? We're just granting, like, if that did happen, if that was the case, was this a wise thing for Jesus to do? I think people are going to be hard pressed, especially if they believe that Jesus is an all-powerful God, that this is somehow the wise way of dealing with it. I mean, I would say the best you could do is lean to like, well, I mean, Jesus is God and we're human, so I'm going to just put my faith in Jesus and say that God knows better than I do. With regards to that kind of stuff.
Yes, this is why we're to internally critique this, because most Christians are going to come at it from these lenses. So I think yes, and if we are claiming that Jesus is God, then we would have to ask questions about an omniscient and omnipotent being. Why would he choose things that it seems as though modern humans could easily make a better decision about? Yes, I agree.
Yeah. And that's not the least of the worries, and that's why we've been talking more about, like, today the notion that this was just historical Jesus, and maybe the pigs didn't run in and drown, but Jesus like believed, or people believed, that he actually did cast these demons into the pigs, and maybe the pigs running into the water and drowning was added after, like maybe this, maybe that, maybe. But either way, like, this whole idea of, oh, that's how I'm going to deal with demons, I'm going to throw them into pigs, and then they can go drown, and then we're done with the demons. Like, it's just that it's not only unwise, it's just utter stupidity to me and immoral behavior. Anyone else have a opinion on that?
I know that one of the things that is mentioned in Christianity is that people are given dominion over nature and the animals. So for me, again, the historical perspective, the historical Jesus, culturally, something like that wouldn't bat an eye. But I don't know. I guess that passage is more or less the divine Jesus. So
right.
It gets kind of tricky distinguishing these things. And yeah, I mean, again, just omnipotence necessitates a 0 out of 10 wisdom, given what's written in the book, in my opinion. Just any mistake would be...
It's just a defeater for that.
Yeah. For an infinitely powerful and omniscient God. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, someone could argue too that, like, human beings have to have information delivered to them in this way. Like, they could say, well, and I'm trying to put my best apologist hat on, like, the reason why the things were taught in this way, because the humans at that time needed to see the effect of, like, the demons going into the water and drowning. It just had to be that way. I think that's probably going to be the best, most coherent leaning to try to convince someone like me that there was some wisdom in it. But some Christians would be like, well, maybe there is no convincing you of the wisdom or whatever. I don't know.
But that goes against my point, like, that if he did all that without making somebody either laugh or smile.
Oh, you're getting back.
Peter's so caught up. Peter's so caught up on the humor part.
But I think it's incredibly important. Like, I mean, unless
I do too. Yeah, I agree.
He was such an orator that
So
he could do everything on such a serious level and keep everybody attentive.
what you would
His
say then,
audience.
Peter, is that you think that he was unwise based on your standards and your purposes that you would deem to be wise.
I didn't mention anything about wisdom at all.
Oh, okay.
Bobby, what about be looking at my standards of wisdom?
Are you going to put your flag in the game, Peter, or are you just going to keep us like ladies in waiting? What do you think what is your stance with regards to Jesus's wisdom?
My stance with Jesus' wisdom. Okay, I think there in the writings there is a fair deal of wisdom in it, yeah. But I mean, I haven't got into it in absolute detail, but it seems like that it's not the worst of wisdoms, but
how are you measuring wisdom?
God, I mean,
well, I'm trying to help you out, Peter, because you mentioned humor. Do you feel as humor is like an essential part of what makes something wise?
No. I think it's an essential part of how to communicate.
Yeah, wisely communicate, right?
Wisely communicate. If you're serious all the time, I mean, you're gonna lose your fucking audience.
Well, not only
Jesus
that,
didn't.
you're going to become unhealthy.
Maybe not everyone does that, but I mean, you will see that any influential speaker can make somebody smile or laugh. That's worth their fucking whatever, even if it's a stupid fucking joke. You know, people have to lighten stuff up in order to talk about serious things at length.
So, to help you put your stake in the ground, would you say something like being able to communicate in a way that involves humor is something that is essential to wisdom?
Not necessarily, but it's essential to getting your message across.
So, what is that necessarily essential thing that you would deem that makes something wise?
But is there one thing I should latch onto here?
No. Well, I mean, at least one, because you haven't given one yet. If it's many, then we'd love to hear.
Why are you challenging me on this?
Well, Peter, when you said
it's
the topic, when you said, well, I guess there was some wisdom there. I'm just curious as to what you are using to inform that.
Okay, with Jesus in general. Well, okay, if it's about wisdom, I suppose, you know, you love your neighbor. Like, I mean, the golden rule in general, I suppose, is a very good one to start off on.
But it's good by it's good by what standard? Like what is the underlying standard that makes that good? Because if you don't have like if, for example, if you're saying it's good with regards to helping human beings flourish from a health perspective, then we have a metric. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Then we have a metric.
That's what I mean. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The logical stance is to. It's not why we should do it, but love your neighbor and your fellow human being is a good metric to fucking by any standards. Like,
well,
I mean, I'll go even as far to say that, you know, he doesn't just say love your neighbor and your enemies. He says love your neighbor and your enemies as you love yourself, right? And so let's talk about, you know, how much do we love ourselves? And
yeah, I have no problem there. So, but look.
Look.
If you can't love yourself, you can't love other people properly.
I'm not Yeah, I'm not. Well, maybe, but I think I think there, those are some of the things I would put in the good column, in the wise column with regards to Jesus, because I did start this episode listing the positive attributes based on my moral stance, based on my stance of wisdom and rationality. So yeah, that's why Jesus isn't scoring a 0, 1, or 2 in my books. He's scoring somewhere around a 5.5, 6 out of 10. And if we're a little more courteous, including taking consideration the time the historical Jesus lived in, apparently, and the way things were then, I think Jesus would have been out of the norm, a pretty wise person. I wouldn't have called him a wise man, but a pretty wise person, or maybe even a little bit more for that time. But yeah, there's just some very questionable ways of teaching that, I mean, to me, based on my standards, I mean, it's very easy from if you're a Christian internally and you believe and you have faith that Jesus was God, I think it would be very easy to just be like, well, I mean, it's God doing something that God deems necessary for some reason. Even if I can't understand it, I have faith that it's, that there is wisdom behind it. Then it's going to be hard for, a Christian, if they have that attitude, to find any wrong, any unwiseness, or any badness or wrongfulness in anything Jesus. And I hear from a lot of Christians that are just like, Jesus is perfect, and stuff like this, but I don't see evidence of perfection at all.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
What up, everyone on YouTube? Make sure you're subscribed to our channel here if you're not subscribed yet. And you can join the live discussion here on Discord. We'll be going probably pretty late here tonight. Sometimes it takes a while for people to join us. But how about we hear from Scott, Mino, Brett? Any thoughts on today's topic? I'm leaving it open for someone to come in, so I'm going to sing a commercial. We are sponsored by Shakespeare. I wish. Actually, I wonder how much. I wonder. Were you going to say stop shaking spears?
Sorry,
you sick man.
What do you guys think about efficiency when it comes to the praxis of wisdom? Because at least in a colloquial sense, like if someone, let's say, wants to go to Tiger State, Comerica Park, where the Tigers play.
Yeah.
There's like 3 routes that you can take from my house. One being about 25 minutes longer than the shortest route. Now, I would still say that if my purpose in Telos is Tiger Stadium, even if I took the longer route, I would still be achieving my
You would still be rational.
Yeah. But in a colloquial sense, I'd be like, I don't think that's wise. It's 3 p.m. Traffic's about to start hitting.
It's not optimal. That route wouldn't be optimal.
That may be a better synonym to use. But yeah.
I do think wisdom is on this varying scale, and I do think what was the word you used with regards to what was the first word you brought up? No, the thing
route. Like you take a different route, or
no, the initial concept.
Colloquial, like I used it in a colloquial sense rather than necessarily a philosophical like wisdom. Efficiency.
Efficiency. Sorry. Yeah, efficiency was the main issue here. So yeah, efficiency is very important for maximizing well-being, physical, mental, and social health. So for me, I think based on my system, it is wise to put emphasis on efficiency with regards to measurements of wisdom.
Wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, I have another aspect of that. As an artist, I'm purposely taking the longest road. Does that make sense?
You're purposefully taking the yeah, I would want to understand the purpose. Like, what is the purpose for taking the long road?
I think you pick up more on the way.
Okay, yeah. If you're to say, I see more wisdom in taking the longer journey because of the higher potentiality of personal experiences along the way. Then, yeah, there is a rationale there. Now we can debate about we can debate about whether that's coherent to your higher purposes or not, if there are higher purposes. But if the high purpose in question here is just maximizing the amount of experiences you have in life, then yeah, the long route makes perfect coherent sense.
That's been my philosophy since my 20s.
Take the longer route.
I just feel like I'm on that path. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I look, the longer route sometimes is also the healthier route. Sometimes the longer route is the most efficient route with regards to your physical, mental, and social health. You might need the long path today. You might.
I do.
I would say necessarily thinking that you always need the long path. I could see some probably incoherence there where it might not be the wisest thing. Like, and I'm sure you don't live it that way. Like if you feel like you want a Coca-Cola, right? And you're at your
got kids, man.
Well, yeah, but you're at your hotel, let's say, when you're on the road, because I know you're a traveling musician, that if you want to grab a quick drink like a Coca-Cola out of just from anywhere, you just want to make sure it's cold. Okay, well, don't. I should have said something. Okay, fine. If you want to drink a protein shake, let's say that. Okay, so if you want to drink a little like store-bought protein shake, and you go out of your door and you really need to get some sleep before your tomorrow's show, and there's a store really close to your hotel, it probably makes good sense. It's probably wise to grab the protein shake that's closest so that you can have it, get some more sleep, things like that, as opposed to walking, feeling like you need to take the longest route, walking an hour away to a gas station, when there's all of these other purposes at play.
Right.
Of course, but that's not the same thing as a lifelong
well, I'm just
artistic goal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just teasing at where this applies.
As fuck, look, I'm really impatient. I used to get taxis.
You should be more patient.
I need
it's bad for your health.
Like walk 300 fucking yards, I'd get a fucking taxi. This is like my 20s.
But
like,
you're
so impatient.
Yeah. But you're a health guy, Peter. You should work on that. Like, impatience is literally bad for your physical, mental, and social health. So,
no. I don't stress. I am a health guy. Yeah. In between these sessions, I'm a health guy.
Yeah. I know. I just think it's important for us to identify. I try to find things as well that might be, working towards my health, whether it's like, ways of thinking, too much negative utility lensing as opposed to positive lensing. Maybe there's some positive naivety.
Do you think that certain work that you do now on your philosophy, for instance, is not something that can be judged short term? Like, say, I'm setting my philosophy in motion.
Yeah.
At this tempo, in order to grasp the details without missing anything. And I'm not actually going to fucking know until I'm 45 or 50 what I actually really think.
Um,
How about that? Does that make
no,
sense?
I don't. No, I don't. I mean, I don't. I don't
I'm
put.
just throwing it out there.
Yeah. I don't put emphasis on like time lived and relate that to wisdom necessarily. Like experiences do matter, but you know,
Fucking do.
just like living another 10 years doesn't mean you're going to be more wise.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. But I kind of get what you're saying. But with regards to my system, Peter, like people are happy to critique it from any angle. Like my system is a system in practice and a system that is, you know, transcending in that larger scope view of what the good life looks like. And I think when you say something like, you know, I like to take the long path, I think you're speaking to that like more transcendence level of your life, the way you're viewing it as like a big picture. You're not saying that like in practice, or the Greeks would call praxis, you know, you're not saying that you're always trying to take the long route so you can make sure you don't miss any potential conversations or anything like that.
No. I mean, I am what I am now.
Okay.
But
yeah.
as I was saying, I look, I don't see much flaw in your own philosophy. I mean, you laid it out there earlier on. It was pretty fucking solid, to be honest. But does it leave any room for
Update?
what to say, evolution or?
Of course. Yeah.
No,
Fallibilism.
I'm not.
Yeah. Fallibilism as my first virtue. Fallibilism is my first virtue. Like the academic conceptualization of fallibilism is that knowledge is possible without any illusions of certainty. But in a more colloquial usage, that fallibilism is this idea that you are you acknowledge that you are in this state of openness to update. So even applied reflexively on the virtue of fallibilism itself. So it may come to me one day that even fallibilism itself as a first, as a governing principle across all domains is incorrect. But the great thing,
I don't think that's going to happen.
Probably not. It's almost certainly not going to happen. But it's great that
it's certainly not going to happen.
Yeah, but it's great, I think, when you have a governing principle like that keeps you honest and keeps you from falling into dogmatism and claims of false absolute certainty. I think that's a really healthy thing, and fallibilism has been shown as a principle to heighten levels of physical, mental, and social health.
But if that's overlaying all your other principles, then
it is a necessary governing force on all of it. Yeah. So I could be a Christian next week due to my fallibilism. I am open to update, across the board. Even though I think it's almost certainly the case that all gods are man-made, and I actually know that there are no gods. That could change tomorrow.
Yeah, well, let's not go there, because we all agree with that. But
well, I'm sure there are people that might. I want to go to Min though to talk about wisdom a bit today, Min. If you're open to talking a bit about wisdom.
Okay, what about wisdom?
Yeah, the question today we are examining is, was Jesus wise? So we're specifically focusing on Jesus, but this does require us to understand what each of us uses to measure wisdom in anything or anyone. Now, if to start off with, I've provided a general academic definition of wisdom, which is wisdom is the ability to use knowledge, experience, and insight to make sound decisions and judgments. I'll repost it here. So so the question would be, it's kind of in two parts. It's, was Jesus wise? But maybe even I would say much more important to me is how does Min measure wisdom?
Well, to me, to measure wisdom is something you can use to resolve conflict, or it has profound impact with minimal verbal expression,
Okay.
aka parables.
So, okay, let's test that out a little bit. So would it be wise for someone to attack another person physically because they felt like that person disrespected them? Would that be a wise thing to do?
For no reason, no.
Okay, well, the reason I gave is that they felt like that other person disrespected them.
Yeah, I mean that's a reason, but I don't think it's a good reason to attack them.
Okay, now let's test at that a little bit. So you said you don't think it's a good reason, and I asked if you think if that's wise behavior. It sounds like you said that wouldn't be wise behavior. Now,
Correct.
what are the underlying metrics that are allowing you to determine whether it's wise? So why isn't that wise behavior?
Well, as I said, to be wise, and you have to be able to resolve conflict with the most, like, it with the least violent tactics, and attacking the one who are disrespectful, it can result in even more conflict, and that's why
Okay.
I don't think it's wise.
Okay, so this ability, okay, this is interesting. This ability to, resolve conflict, and you mentioned in a simple way. Is that a good way to?
Yeah.
Okay, so wisdom would be like an example of wisdom would be, and we'll eventually get to how this would apply to Jesus with regards to how you would measure Jesus and Jesus's action. Okay, so would you think it's wise to attempt to live a healthy life by way of what science determines good health to be for the human body?
Yes, it's wise to do that.
Okay, and is that wise in and of itself, or is there, because there's no real, let's say, conflict involved there, or maybe you do see conflict, maybe the conflict between the potentiality for unhealth versus good health, maybe that's the conflict you would reference. So is that kind of how you think about wisdom in that situation? Like there is a conflict between things that are trying to pull you into bad health and maybe things that are demonstrably good for your health, something like that?
Well, to be honest, when I think about wisdom, I don't usually think of like it in a scientific manner, like health or anything like that. I tend to think it more like something you can resolve in, dealing with human relationship or
Okay.
strengthening your virtues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. Okay, so when you apply this calculus and this lensing to Jesus, what do you see in Jesus? Do you see someone who is generally a wise person? Do you see Jesus as someone who's mixed, does wise things, but maybe some unwise things as well? How do you digest Jesus from a wisdom perspective?
So my answer would can be referred to the story of the adulterous woman in John chapter 8. So if you remember the story, the Pharisee brought to Jesus a woman who caught to have adultery, and they asked him, this is according to the law of Moses, then we had
Yeah.
to stone her. So what would you do? And he said, anyone who without sin, go ahead and stone her. And of course, nobody did. So they all left. And then when they left, Jesus said to the woman, I don't condemn you. So go and don't sin anymore. So that's where I see him, like he resolved the issue right there with the religious scribes
Yeah.
in a very sufficient manner without causing death or violence. So I see that as a wise decision.
Do you think that though Jesus is kind of playing with fire here? Because as a moral well-beingist, I am worried in this situation that, let's say it's historical Jesus and it's not Jesus who, from the Trinitarian perspective, that Jesus is all-powerful God. I worry about that message because surely there could be a human being that believes they're without sin and they smash her head in with a rock. Even if they're they are living in sin, maybe they're just arrogant and they don't think they are living in sin. So if that would have happened, and Jesus had the power to stop that behavior by being more clear that no, it's just bad to stone someone to death for this. He's saying, okay, you guys can do this, but let the person who is without sin cast the first stone. The first stone could kill her. And I feel like Jesus is playing with fire here, and I don't see much wisdom in that. If in fact Jesus's goal is
he hasn't condemned it.
Is connected with wanting to help people. In this case, obviously, by what's said, it seems like he wanted to help this person. So, what do you think about that, Min?
Well, yeah. Well, I think it's a story. So I would say that probably he understood people psychology back then in that story, and he also understood the law of Moses just as well as the scribes. So probably that's why he was playing with fire, but I think he knew what he was doing.
Well,
was Moses
the victory.
One sec, Peter. If you could mute just while I go back and forth with Min for a bit, that would be great. So, okay, interesting. You said, yeah, maybe he was playing with fire, but you kind of trust that he knew what he was doing. And do you think you're saying Jesus probably knew, like, the psychology of the people that were involved in that situation, because he's God, or because he had some like special psychological insights, or because even if it's just historical Jesus, where we're not saying that he's God or not yet at this point, like there wasn't much good information available with regards to human cognition and psychology and things like that. So again, I would be concerned that if like there's this group of angry people who are primed because of the old laws to, Jesus, we're ready to carry out the law right now and stone her to death. they're kind of coming to him for permission. I think it's an excellent opportunity to denounce that kind of barbaric behavior. And if Jesus's goal is to teach good values or morals, and he's playing fast and loose with, kind of like God does with Abraham and Isaac, with the knife to the throat. I think Jesus here is taking a calculated risk on the life of the woman. Now, someone could say, well, he's he's all knowing, but I think it's deeply immoral, bad, and unwise to the based on the purpose of wanting to teach lessons here, to go about it in this way. I think the risk is too high. The woman's life is too important.
Can I add something to this? So I know with this account in the book of John, one of the things I think we have to kind of look at, if we're reading it in context, it's not that they were trying to get Jesus' permission. The idea here was to trap Jesus, right? It was to trap him. It wasn't to get permission for him to do something. And if we look at the entire account, the purpose of this wasn't to teach something. The purpose of this was to restore. And if we're talking about, wisdom
what?
being
restore what?
Restore the woman caught in adultery, because
that doesn't change my calculus though. And by the way, you're giving one interpretation. Like, I can read multiple interpretations, but you're speaking about it as though it's not like just like the interpretation you prefer. You're speaking about it as though this is like the one true interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, there's different interpretations. One of the things that people believe, right? When before Jesus even says, he who is without sin cast the first stone. We see, and John, he's sitting there and he's writing in the sand, right? He's writing on the ground. Well, is it what Jesus said that caused the religious leaders and the folks not to stone that woman? Or was it because of something maybe he wrote? Maybe because he is God. Maybe because of the fact that maybe he wrote the commandments on the ground and they saw that. And as human beings, nobody is perfect. I'm pretty sure you and I can agree with that. And Jesus is trying to level the playing field, to say, hey, you guys are not above the law, just as this woman isn't. And he who doesn't have any sin cast the first stone. And I believe this is wise because it's leveling the playing field.
Yeah, but he's using the woman as a pawn, putting her in danger here to, like you said, restore or teach.
Well, he's not using her as a pawn because he doesn't bring her, right? So if we look at the context, Jesus is teaching in the temple synagogue, and the scribes bring her to him while he's teaching.
That's fine.
And
that doesn't mean though that he's not using her as a means to an end to teach restoration or to provide some lesson that will later be written into Scripture. Like I don't see how
it is later written into Scripture, because what he does for this woman when he tells her, "Did anybody stone you?" and does anybody condemn you? And the woman says no. Yeah. And he says, "Neither do I." Right? And then he tells her, "Go and sin no more."
Yeah, but that's not the problem. We already went through that part. That's not the problem. The problem is in this moment, instead of Jesus saying, "No, we do not stone women to death." That's the moral angle, which is like quite obviously what he should have done. But even within his own like wanting to keep wanting to not deny the old laws and the way he went about it here, I'm saying that it's unwise way of teaching to put her at risk at all, because I'm saying even you admitted that human beings aren't perfect. The imperfect human in this situation could have smashed her head in with a rock, and we would be looking at a different tale here. Even when Jesus said, he who is without sin cast the first stone, and then the man, thinking he was without first sin, smashed her head in with the rock, then the lesson maybe would be here, even human beings who are certain enough they are without sin to take another person's life.
So, well, then let's look on the flip side of that. If Jesus didn't say anything, what do you think would have happened to the woman?
He should have said, like I said, he should have said something. That's the morally righteous thing to do.
So if he would have said, you shouldn't stone this woman, the people who were there were already trying to trap him, do you think they would listen to him? Because when you read the scripture, it says they were trying to trap him. And so the thing is, it's like this, right? If for some reason, if I don't like you, right? If I don't like you and you're telling me not to do something, is that still going to hit my conscience to make me not want to do the thing that I'm going to do?
Yes. So what he could have done is said, he could have said, you cannot harm this woman because all of you are without sin, or all of you are living in sin. That is much less risk to the woman's life.
I mean, that's exactly what he says, right? Where he
says, it isn't.
He who was without sin, cast the first stone.
He doesn't say first, none of you will harm this woman, or none of you will cast a stone, because you are also living in sin. That's different than saying, okay, let any of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her, or cast the first stone. There's an invitation there that I really don't like, and I really think it's an unwise way of teaching this particular lesson. Because I know you want to say it. You might want to say there's no lesson here, but I think the lesson is that that there is forgiveness of sin, and Jesus forgave and said, take this lesson forward and go sin no more. I mean,
yeah. So I mean, I guess the way what I'm looking at is, if you're saying that, okay, if he would have came and said, okay, don't stone this woman, right, for all you guys have sinned. Well, first of all, I think we have to look at the fact that the scribes already saw Jesus as an enemy, right? The way I look at this, right, is if you have a hatred towards somebody, it doesn't matter what good that person says. Your hatred towards that person is going to go to it's going to go against your morals, right? I mean, we see that happen. It does. I mean, on the truth. Okay, I'm not trying to make this. I don't want to make this political, but let's just talk about folks who hate a certain leader. Okay, people who have a hatred towards the certain leader. And even if this leader were is doing something well, their hatred supersedes the fact that this person is actually trying to help this woman. So the way way I'm looking at this is that if Jesus would have gone the way that you said, they would have stoned the woman right there and then.
Yeah, you don't know that.
Because
you can't know that.
There's truth to that, because they hold the law. The reason
matter.
Why is
so it doesn't look what you're saying is, if he would have instead protected her first and then said the same thing, you're saying for some reason that would have triggered them to stone her. You don't know that. How can you claim that? You're just saying
So I can claim that because the purpose of why do they bring the woman to Jesus?
This is irrelevant to where we're at.
That's relevant.
Okay,
because why they bring her to him is to trap him. They're not going to follow along with the case that he's trying to make. Whatever Jesus said, they weren't going to follow along with whatever he said. But one thing that they did adhere to, they understood, was that as the scribes were trying to throw the law of Moses down his throat. Jesus sits there on the ground and he's writing in the sand. Okay, he's writing in something that's quite weird, right? For someone to sit there and write in the sand, I would say it's almost rude, right? But as he's writing in the sand, we see in the scriptures, you see that the religious leaders leave, starting with the oldest, and if we look at the biblical commentaries, what people believe is happening is Jesus is writing down the sins of all of the religious leaders, and they see that. Maybe they're like, hey, look, you're stoning this woman, but look, you're a rabbi, you cheated on your wife, and they all leave. And so it's not what Jesus says.
All of that stuff. All of that stuff is irrelevant to dealing with the instance I'm looking at in the moment. So whatever happened before that doesn't matter to me as a moral well-beingist. What matters in this scenario is there is a threat, a direct threat on this woman's life here. And the morally responsible thing to do and the wise thing to do from a teaching a lesson perspective is to first make sure that the message is clear that stoning that this woman cannot be stoned. And Jesus should have put himself in front of the woman.
So I would say Jesus is not trying to teach a lesson. I think what happens here is that it's through this event that a lesson is taught. It's not him sitting there and saying, I'm just gonna, I'm trying to teach people a lesson. No, as events are happening, he's using these events as teaching moments, right? He's doing what you and I as humans will do whenever our children if our children are doing certain things. We're going to use it as a teaching moment, right? And that's exactly what Jesus does. And so I guess I'll say this last point.
That's what I said. That's what I said. He's using it as a teaching moment. And also, just so you know, like biblical scholars disagree with you. They think there are many lessons being taught by Jesus in this instance, and we can go through that if you want.
But ask a question.
But wait. Let's let Chris finish here.
Yeah. So I'm just going to finish my last thought here.
Yeah.
I think that. I mean, obviously, when we're talking about wisdom here, right? I think wisdom is going to be definitely subjective, based off of the purpose of what we're trying to do, right? A good example is, hey, I myself, as you guys know, I'm a Christian, and so I'm going to follow the wisdom of what it means to be a Christian. Just as somebody who is a Muslim, they're going to follow the wisdom of a Muslim. Yeah. And I feel that when we look at wisdom is not something that you can sit here and just measure, because it is something that changes through time. Like a good example.
To some people, it might. It depends, though, right?
I think it depends on what you're talking about, right? If you're talking about like, hey, let's be financially wise, right? Don't go splurge and spend all your money. Save your money. Okay, yes, that's something that's wise. But, when I look at wisdom, I think if it's wisdom that improves the quality of life of an individual, that helps that person to be the best version of themselves, I believe that's wisdom.
Well, when you say best version of themselves, does that apply to Adolf Hitler?
I'm sorry?
Does that apply to Adolf Hitler in your conceptualization of what wisdom looks like?
Well, that's the reason why I'm saying wisdom is subjective, because what he thought at the time, what he did may have what he thought was wise, right?
Yeah, we're not asking today for you to provide like you're like, I don't think anyone's going to disagree here that wisdom is, born of the subject. But like the idea today is for you to provide, and it sounds like you use Christianity and Christian teachings as sources of wisdom. So the idea is like trying to coherently deliver to us how your wisdom metrics are used to judge particular acts of Jesus. Is it for you as a Christian? Do you believe all Jesus's acts during the course of his life were wise?
Yeah, I believe the things that he did were wise because of the restoration that he brought to the restoration that he brought to people, the hope that he brought to people. the healings, the miracles, right?
Is it
Those are wise things.
Is it possible? Yeah, you're looking at the positive lens, right? But I'm looking to see if you can muster a critique. Is it possible that Jesus could have been unwise at any moment?
That he could have been unwise at any moment.
Is it possible?
I would say, if we look at according to what his purpose was and what his mission was, the wisdom is according to what that was. So everything he did was according to what his purpose and what his mission was. So yeah, I would say he was wise at all times.
So it's not possible that he was unwise at any point.
Yeah, I don't believe it was. I don't think it's possible he was unwise at any point.
Well, then that would signify a dogma to me. You hold the dogma, which is you believe it's incontrovertibly true that everything that Jesus did was wise. And I think that's a illogical position.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can, we're here to have a healthy conversation, so I'm good. I'm here to learn and hear you guys out as well.
And I can tell you why it's an illogical position, because it should be clear to you that it's at least possible that tomorrow a new scroll is found where it demonstrates clearly to you that Jesus was unwise at some moment in his history. And I'm simply talking about possibility, not plausibility. And do you think it's possible that something could be found, a piece of information with regards to Jesus, that could cause you to believe that Jesus was unwise about something?
I mean, through my own studying, reading through the scriptures, understanding who Jesus is, I unless there's something that clearly says that he, when he as a human being, he goes through and orders heinous acts against individuals. But we see according to the when we talk about the New Testament, right, everything Jesus does is counterculture.
But you believe but you believe Jesus is God, right?
Oh yeah, I believe Jesus is God.
Okay,
yes.
but Jesus did order heinous acts against the Amalekites.
Okay, yeah. So I knew you guys were going to bring the Amalekites, right? Yeah. So when we talk about the Amalekites, was it murder or was it killing?
It was murder and in many children as well, right? Apparently.
Yeah. So when we talk about and I can see where this can definitely get uncomfortable, and people have asked me this question before as well. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, if God is good, why does he order these things, right? Or if Jesus at that time, since we know that Jesus is in fact God, he is part of the Godhead, so he had a part in this. As that's something that I can't answer. I don't know what God was thinking, but what I do know, we're looking at the context, is who the Amalekites were, what they did, and the time that God gives them, right, to repent. And this is a common cycle that happens throughout all of the Bible, is that every time someone does, something that is against their Creator, God gives them time to turn around, and they don't. And when they don't, there's justice that needs to be served. And if we're saying that this is something
against
that
children
is so one way we can look at this is that when we look at the following Pearl Harbor, right? We went and we bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and we see did it kill women? Did it kill children? So there's justice. So there's justice that has to be served. So we live in
but you're comparing the Americans trying to put an end to the war compared to God, who apparently is a perfect good being.
Yeah,
That
because he
this
has
this is
justice.
an incoherent comparison. God could simply God has the power to go about changing the ways of Amalek in seemingly infinite amount of different ways, but yet he chooses barbarism and slaughtering of children. Like what kind of a maniac would create that kind of design and choose that route?
Well, if God were to go ahead and do that, I mean, why don't he just change every one of us just to love him, right?
Well, we
Every
don't
one
have
of us.
to. No. You don't have to use that comparison, because he could
Well,
he could still have the design. He could still have the design, but in cases where God deemed it like, oh, I'm feeling like I need to eliminate these people by way of mass murder. In cases like that, God should have the wisdom and the moral fortitude to realize that, okay, yeah, I can't do that. What I should do is send them a Messiah within this design I've created, and the Messiah can help to change and redeem Amalek.
Well, the thing about it is, when we look
Like,
at,
why
if you're talking about
am I
changing-
more moral and smarter than God? Why? Why is that the case?
If you're saying that God can just change, the leader Amalek, then ultimately you're infringing on free will.
So what?
Like, love is.
So what? It's better than killing children. Infringing on someone's free will is way better than killing children.
Yeah, so if we look at, so I think the way, and obviously folks on here are going to disagree, right? Which is fine. I mean, when I'm looking at this is, when God does, order these things,
Yep.
right? These individuals, right? We know that God loves children. We know that when children, whether the children who believe or not, right, they get to go be with him, right? When their time does come. And so, the way that we look at it is changing locations. Hey, they're living in this world that's broken, that's fallen, right? Where there is these things that happen, and now they're just going back to be restored, to be back with God.
So why would God have them murdered and slaughtered as opposed to just moving them into heaven? Because he's violating their free will. I mean, he's violating their free will by sending these militants to slaughter them.
Well, in order for God to be God, he has to have justice, right? Because if there's no justice, then God can't be God. Even in the world that we live right now, we live in a system where justice needs to be served. That's the reason why we have people who have the death penalty. That's the reason why we have,
the death penalty is evil. The death penalty is evil. It's just pure evil. It's as evil as the God that dictates the death penalty on children.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, and you said it's obvious that God loves children. No, it's not obvious. God created this design that has the potentiality for bone cancer in children, for leukemia, for all of these things. He didn't have to create a design with that potentiality, but he did. He did it to children. He created creation with pedophiles and child abusers, with the potentiality for that. Regardless of what someone might want to apologize that away and call that the sinful nature of man, it should have never been in the design in the first place. It's just pure and utterly evil. There's no excuse for a design like that. It's sick. And that's my opinion as a human being, as a moral well-being, as who admits that these are my subjective opinions. But I just feel very strongly that it's just quite obvious based on most discernible ethical standards, if we turn them over and lens them towards the God of the Bible, and if you're a Trinitarian, that would be lensed towards Jesus as well, that there are so many overwhelming evils that it doesn't matter how many goods God has created. I'm not a simple consequentialist. The evils need to be accounted for. Talk about justice. What about justice being delivered onto God? What about that justice?
I mean, God is creator, and he is the one who defines, what's just.
Too
because
bad.
I mean, this is
Yeah.
Obviously, my own
Yeah.
take on this, right? And
Yeah.
perfectly fine.
I
Yeah,
get
I
it.
mean, I think when we look at who God is, right? In the beginning, he talks, when he creates everything is great, everything is good, right? It's not until original sin comes into play, the fall of man. And that's why we have cancer and all the. And I know your argument is like, well, why put the tree of knowledge of good and evil there in the first place, right?
No.
'Cause I
My
know-
argument is, regardless of what happened with Adam and Eve, is my design. I can improve on the almighty, all-powerful God's design right now, very easily. All I have to do is say, okay, I'll take the exact same design, but I'm going to eliminate just one case of childhood leukemia. The potentiality for that, just one. That's an improvement on what is said to be the all good, all powerful, all knowing, all of this design. And if people and again, I'm not talking about the actual how free will and sin plays into this. I'm talking about the kinds of things that there are potentials for. The design
So are you
never
talking-
ever
you
ever
mean like-
should have included
Okay.
potentiality for brain cancer in children. That's maniacal, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, fair point. Yeah.
But
No. But I appreciate the dialogue, though, man.
yeah, no, I do too. I'm, I think you are able to articulate your position in a good faith, helpful way, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. I'll stop talking. My bad. I didn't mean to take over, man.
No worries. This was a great exchange. I hope you engage more in our group conversations. It would be great.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Trey, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, Travis?
Not too much. We're talking about.
I knew
wisdom.
you would come to me.
Yes, I knew. Trey knew he was next. We are
Well,
talking about wisdom. Was Jesus wise? We just spoke with Chris, who is holding the infallibilist position of Jesus's wisdom, in that, it's not possible that Jesus was ever unwise. Are you kind of linked with Chris on that?
Yeah. I think you did a great job. I think in order to defend that Jesus was wise, have you ever read the One Solitary Life poem?
Nope. I can pull it up right now, though.
Do it.
Solitary Life.
And this will defend the position. And
Okay, it's
don't
not
have
very
too much
long,
time.
it looks like.
Yeah, it's like a little poem.
Just let me try this again, because my system's being stupid. It was like treating it like it's porn or something.
Uh-oh.
One Solitary. Is this like Christian pornography? No, I'm kidding. One Solitary Life. The famous poem was, okay. He was born in an obscure village, the child of a peasant woman. He grew up in another village. He worked in a carpenter shop until he was 30. Then, for 3 years, he was an itinerant preacher. He never wrote a book. He never held an office. He never owned a home. He never had a family. He never went to college. He never put his foot inside a big city. He never traveled 200 miles from the place where he was born. He never did one of the things that usually accompany greatness. He had no credentials but himself. While still a young man, the tide of popular. Is that the whole thing?
No, it looks like we have a little bit of a different version, but
Yeah,
he
what's
was only
going on here?
33. Yeah, I don't know. Mexican internet? I don't know. I can say that because
Probably.
I'm Mexican.
Yeah. Okay, here I got an image here. Here, let me pull this up. This will be better. Okay, let's do this again. He was born in an obscure village, the child of a peasant woman. He grew up in another obscure village where he worked in a carpenter shop until he was 30. He never wrote a book. He never held an office. He never went to college. He never visited a big city. He never traveled more than 200 miles from the place where he was born. He did none of the things usually associated with greatness. He had no credentials but himself. He was only 33. His friends ran away. One of them denied him. He was turned over to his enemies and went through the mockery of a trial. He was nailed to a cross between two thieves while dying. While dying, his executioners gambled for his clothing, the only property he had on earth. When he was dead, he was laid in a borrowed grave through the pity of a friend. 19 centuries have come and gone, and today Jesus is the central figure of the human race. All the armies that have ever marched, all the navies that have ever sailed, all the parliaments that have ever sat, all the kings that have ever reigned put together have not affected the life of mankind on earth as powerfully as that one solitary life.
Yeah, so he was obviously an influential person. You miss one line, I think, there, and the leader of mankind's progress. So
I think, Trey, can you speak a little less closely to your mic just because
Sorry.
it booms a bit? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I remember. Yeah, I think you might have missed one line there, and it's the one line was in the leader of mankind's progress, but everything else sounded good. Yeah, so this defends basically. I see that Mega says, "When do we get to the wisdom part?" Maybe you don't perceive somebody being probably the most influential person ever in all of mankind to be wise, but maybe you just think that it's influential, and that's fine. And we can take this poem to mean that he is clearly the most influential person. Christianity is still the biggest, most populous religion in the world. And his stories in the Bible speak for themselves. I think you asked a lot of good questions back and forth with Chris. But
I mean, Islam.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda. I don't think that it has bearing on the he who cast the first stone. Well, what if this happened and what if that happened? We don't need to play that game.
Oh well, I'm critiquing his actual behavior in that moment.
But then,
I'm not critiquing what if this happened or what if that. Let's be clear. I am critiquing the way Jesus specifically handled that and how he could have handled it in a more wise fashion.
Well, what happened ended up being that everybody let the woman go, and then he said, "Go and sin no more." But basically, what I was going to say was, it's clear that he was wise, and you just have to read the Bible to know that, because I don't know if many people could think like he did.
And what standard of wisdom are you measuring Jesus by?
Standard of wisdom.
Yeah. What do you mean by wisdom when you say Jesus was obviously wise? What standard? By what standard?
Okay, so this is an epistemological question. Well, prima facie, he was wise. because he intervened on those people about to injure or damage that woman. So upon your first glance, you know that he saved that woman's life, and it would take a wise person to do that.
No, I think a deeply unwise person could do that. Maybe you would view that as a wise act, but in fact, if any of those other people believed themselves to be free of sin, they could have very well cast the first stone on her. They didn't, apparently.
So, real quick.
But that does matter to me. It does matter to me that, because I'm really imagining this woman, and I'm really imagining Jesus in this situation where, I don't think he did enough, engaged with enough due diligence to protect the safety of the woman. And I feel like she was used as a means to an end to teach the lessons that many scholars would agree were taught by way of this phenomena, this action.
Two things. I finished reading The End of Faith by Sam Harris. In the book, Sam Harris says that he's in Prague, I think, and he got in the way of some people like kidnapping a woman, and he acted dumb. He was like, "Oh, where do I go to my hotel?" or whatever. Like, he acted dumb as a means to let the woman escape from their hold. And as far as he wrote, the woman did get away. Now, the way he did that was not the way that you would do it, because you would go there, seemingly your moral guns blazing. Well, you're not supposed to kidnap a woman and this and that. But the way Sam Harris did it was subtle, and it was enough to let the woman get away. Now, I think that's extremely wise, even though he doesn't give himself credit. I thought that story was fake because of how heroic it was. So that's point one. Jesus did it maybe not the way you would do it, but it was still incredibly wise. And then the second point I would say, and this is just a question that you could follow up with your response, do you think you're wiser than Jesus?
In many of these instances, like for example, I am wiser than the Jesus who, scoffed the fig tree. That is a deeply unwise. I mean, if we're talking about Jesus as God, easily I am much wiser than God of the Bible and Jesus. But if we're talking about Jesus as the as the historical Jesus who apparently lived as a human being, then when I look at the way Jesus went about the shortcomings, the way Jesus was infallible, seemingly infallible about his connection to godliness or his belief in eternal torture and hell, I think I'm wiser than Jesus. Yeah.
Would a wise person be able to gain influence on the world?
A wise person could gain influence on the world. I don't consider Elon Musk to be a wise person, but he's a highly intelligent person who has made a lot of money and created a lot of technology. So that's an example of someone, who, is literally, by way of his own enterprises, reshaping the world. So I don't think you need to be wise to gain this kind of influence. I don't think Muhammad was wise, the so-called prophet. I'm sure you would say false prophet. So yeah, I don't think you need to be wise to gain influence. But I must say that there are a lot of things I find wise about the way Jesus behaved in the era that he is said to have walked this earth. I went through a lot of the good things today, but it's not all good things. It's not all wise behavior. There is some. I mean, I can pull up my list again, but like,
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to go up and intervene in front of people nowadays when you have cameras and you can expose them, and maybe
yeah,
there's actual governments that will actually protect people. But it's another thing when the law of the land is violence and you have to go about it that way. Like, you're not going to go in there with your moral guns blazing, because then you yourself will get stoned.
but yeah, I mean, like, first of all, like, if a woman was about to be stoned, and this is a problem, because if we're and I'm talking about the historical Jesus. Let's say he has nothing to do with the the creation of the universe through the lens I'm looking at least. Like, urgency is important in moments where people are throwing a woman down and bringing her forth to be executed by way of stoning. And it's not like you act like a bull in a china shop, but you make it very clear that no one can stone this woman because you are all of a sinful nature, or all of you are also sinners, as opposed to let the one who is without sin cast the first stone. The problem with that is that this isn't wise, because Jesus obviously, I don't think Jesus wants them to stone this woman ultimately, but Jesus knows damn well the let's say the sinful nature of man, even based on his own words. So how does he know that there isn't some sinful asshole who doesn't think they are living in sin that's going to throw the first stone? And like I said earlier, then we have a different kind of lesson being taught. I really think that Jesus is playing with fire here. And I think he's trying, like a lot of scholars would agree, to teach some valuable lessons. But I don't think, if his goal is to protect this woman, but also be teaching some lessons, I feel like he's using her as a means to an end, and he's putting her at risk when he offers that to the people.
Well, do you think Sam Harris was wise when he kind of pulled a fast one on the people? Can you
explain the Sam Harris one again? Because I can't remember that in the book, but can you say it once more?
Yeah. So, in summary, in The End of Faith, he writes about a time when he's in Prague, I believe it is, that there's some men kidnapping a young woman. It looks like they're trying to stuff her into a vehicle or something, and he intervenes by playing dumb. He thought about going up to them and physically intervening them, but there was more than just one of them. There was like 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever. So he knew that he'd kind of get his butt kicked pretty much. So he ended up, according to the book, kind of tricking them, like asking them, hey, do you know where my hotel is? And do you know where this is? And kind of acting dumb, like not knowing the language and this and that.
Yeah.
And then in the book, he even glanced at the woman and tried to give her a heads up, like, hey, this is your chance to get the heck out of this situation.
Yeah.
And it ended up according to the book, I couldn't believe it. It ended up working well. Like the woman got away.
She got away.
And yeah, and he didn't face any harm or anything.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think that's a wise way of approaching that kind of intervention to try and save this woman. I think it's wise. I think in situations like that, yeah, if you try to call the police and she's being shoved into a vehicle, you probably don't have that. Time is of the essence. It's going to take the police a long time to get there. If you try screaming and yelling, or you cause a commotion, they might be inclined to just hurry up and get her in there quicker and make off with her. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that was good, righteous, wise behavior, wise thinking. Yeah.
absolutely, I agree. I couldn't believe it. I thought it could be even a made up story, but I can only go with what I read, and apparently that's what I read. So
Why do you think that that's wise, Trey?
well,
On your
Travis thinks
standards?
it's wise too.
Well, here's the thing, though, Trey.
I know why Trav thinks it,
Yeah.
but engage with my question if you don't mind. Why do you think that what Sam did there was wise based on your own standards?
He did what he could do in the situation he was in.
So, but Trey, there's Perry's asking the question of what are your standards for wisdom? Like in a situation like that, what I would say is that, Sam Harris and other human beings have a moral duty to do something about this, because this is in violation of her well-being, her physical, mental, and social health. So like, well, and I would say, the way Sam acted was wise to the purpose of wanting to save her from that situation. So he acted wisely, and he also acted good and righteously in that situation. So I think what Perry's getting at is like, what metrics are you using? Let's say maybe you get it from Christianity or whatever, just like, how do you, like, because you're saying you notice it's wise, but how do you know it's wise?
The only thing that you've said so far is influence and being influential. That's the only thing that I've heard as a potential standard.
I mean, I've said a lot of things. I've said that he did what he could in that situation.
But that's not a standard. So are you saying that doing what you can in a scenario is what deems something to be wise? Would that be a steel man of what your standard is to wisdom?
Doing the best you can in the situation you're in.
Oh, okay. Yes. And what do you mean by best?
You do what you can. If it's playing,
like if I wanted to like dissect, a living body, doing it the best that I could would be wise.
If you're a scientist, yeah.
A living body.
Sorry.
Okay, let's. I won't be so soft because that was ambiguous. If I wanted to, axe murder the pawnbroker lady, and just get it real clean and neat, make sure get her head right off of her shoulders, and as little cleanup as possible, leave no evidence behind. If I did that as best as I could, that would be a wise action.
Why are you making it into a negative?
Let me ask another
your standard. Hang on, Peter. Because your standard was best.
Yeah.
And best is, for me, not sufficient, because there are a lot of negative things that we can do very well, into a point of, the best possible way given a scenario.
Okay. Well, you can just kind of infer that what I mean is do the best you can in the situation that you're in to help people. You can just infer that. I don't know why you have to resort to hacking somebody's head off.
Now, what if I wanted to help, a gang of terrorists
hijack
a bus? Yeah, because there's a flaw in the standard. Right.
No,
So,
there's not a flaw. You just have to hope, or you just have to expect
but there is
that
a
the
flaw
people.
because I can do these standards that you're saying, do the best that I can at helping people, and without any further explication on what would be in your standard, I can apply it to the terrorist scenario, and you wouldn't deem it to be wise, is clearly what you're saying.
Well, you're not
But
helping
then
people.
I am. I'm helping the terrorists achieve their goal.
And you're hurting 99% of other people. You're helping 1% to hurt 99%.
Okay, but Perry has brought you to an important place. Now you're making a differentiation.
I think I sound too combative for a lot of these interlocutors. Maybe I'm just being a pessimist right now, but
no, you're fine. You're fine. Yeah,
that's okay.
Yeah. So we can even use the I think the examples Perry were using was actually teasing out something important, but we can also look at the Sam Harris example where if, like, for example, Trey, if Sam Harris, instead of doing what he did, which I agree with you was wise, if he would have screamed like a woman, like high pitched scream, like, somebody help, would you have considered that wise?
No, I think what he did was the best thing he could do.
This is very important. On the Sam Harris example.
I'll bring you. I promise I'll bring you in, Peter, right away. So there's something really important here. We just got a clear differentiation, and what it has to do with is what the classical definition of wisdom has to do with. It's you're seeing what Sam Harris, the path Sam Harris took there, as rational. You're saying that was, when you're saying the best he could do, you're talking about rationality, like coherence to logic. It was a really good use of what was logically available to achieve that particular goal. Now, him screaming and pointing and yelling and potentially, causing the kidnappers to panic and hurry up and do something drastic. You said that you wouldn't really see that as wise. And that's an important distinction. And I think you wouldn't see that as wise because of how it would be much less rational to the purpose of wanting to save that woman. So really, Trey, I think something you should mention is that there's the ethical layer that's going to determine the goal setting, like determine that it's the good and righteous thing to help that woman in that situation. There's that layer, but then there's the rationality layer. And often when we're talking about wisdom in philosophy, we are talking about that rationality layer. Does that make sense?
I'm still unclear on the standard of Trey.
I'm a little unclear.
Just talked about my whole thing. That was me. I was going to say all that shit, Trav.
But I'm unclear
on.
I'm unclear on why you think that it was unwise for Jesus.
No. It was not wise to Sam Harris to do that because it could have gone doubly fucking wrong.
Well, this is where
scream like a girl.
No. He's saying that Peter's saying the intervention in the way Sam Harris went about it could have, Sam Harris apparently, according to his story, it worked out, but it could have gone very bad still in the way Sam Harris approached
the other
that.
direction.
That's life.
Yeah,
that's life.
Yeah, so that's a critique on maybe it could have, but according to this story, it did go well. But Trey, does the distinction between the underlying ethics enforcing the goals of good, bad, right, and wrong, that being different from the rationality towards those goals, like the logical coherence of approaching those goals, does that difference make sense?
Say that again.
Huh?
Can I ask him a question that may help him understand? Because he doesn't think that the hijacking of the terrorist is on the ethical layer of wisdom a good thing. He keeps harping on how I'm bringing up the negative side of things.
Yeah.
Why is that negative? Is the question. Because it seems like you're hinting at purely the rationality aspect, like the instrumental of achieving a purpose. And I'm bringing up to, oh, well, we can achieve purposes that are ethically bad, at least based on my standards. So why would the hijacking or, the axe murder be a negative or bad, in your opinion? This
Are
is the
you
ethical layer.
are you asking me why helping terrorists would be a bad thing?
Yes,
Yes.
he's asking you what
I'm
your
asking
what
you
your
to articulate
calculus.
that.
He's asking what your
I
value
was thinking about
calculus
doing
is.
that for 10 minutes
Your
there, and I just
argument, hang on, Peter. Your argument from like obviousness or inference
Yeah.
isn't sufficient. It's very low resolution, and I'm asking if you can articulate that.
I can provide an argument.
No,
I can provide
Big
an argument
Yahoo.
of
No.
why.
You just there's something going on here. We will get you in, but there is an order right now. So I want
This
Mega.
will be my last thing as well.
Yeah, I want
I have my
Mega.
deli ticket. I have my deli ticket in my hand.
Okay, good. And then we'll go Peter, I think, after that, if Peter has more to say. But Perry and Trey, please keep going.
Yeah, aside from the argument of obviousness, why is it that helping the terrorist or the axe murder would be a bad thing based on your standards? Your ethical.
I think I already said it. Actually, I said that you're helping 1% to hurt 99% of the people, and that's aside from the obvious. You don't.
Yeah, but
help terrorists.
Sam only helped one person, and he didn't help the other three in his little scenario.
Oh, you're talking about like in pure numbers. That's right. But he helped the person that was in need of help and not
Okay,
the
good. And
aggressors.
why were they in need of help?
Or not the people trying to do harm to that
Harm. There we
woman.
go. Okay.
Yep.
So she was in need of help because of the potential harm or damage to her health, is I think what at least I was trying to fish for. And in the case of the hijacking, obviously physical and mental health and distress, and we can go
Yeah, I mean,
on and on.
you have a woman in distress. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay,
you're
yeah, so
so
when
he's
you're
he's engaging in
Sure.
well-being calculus, I think, is what
Correct.
Perry
So
is
when
getting at
you're
here.
asked in the future, this is me, according to your standards, being a moral person and helping you, you should be able to articulate now that you don't have to use well-being, but health in some way or a reduction of harm. Because just, being influential or helping or doing the best that you possibly can at the axe murder, in my opinion, and I don't think based on your standards either, would suffice as a wise thing to do.
I could
So-
also say that I want to help this person's for their soul.
Oh yeah, you can add that.
Yeah.
That's another
that's
metric.
fine.
That's another metric. Yeah. And I think you should state that when someone's asking you for your metric tray, they're trying to this is just, I mean, a high resolution philosophy note. When people are asking for your metrics, try to give all of it. Try to give the soul. Try to give, trying to save someone from catastrophe who needs help ultimately because it is bad or wrong to cause them pain, suffering, or detriment to their well-being. I think that's what Perry's been trying to tease out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, Sam Harris example, very, very interesting. Peter, did you have anything else you wanted to add there? Mr. Peter, pumpkin eater. Nope. Yeah. Big Yahoo, you had something?
Yeah. So I want to put forth an argument why it's good to help terrorists. And so starting point is that I think it's good for Travis to maximize well-being. And because it's good for Travis to maximize well-being, it's therefore also good for me to maximize opportunity for Travis to maximize well-being. And the best way that I can do that is by initially minimizing well-being, therefore creating more opportunities for Travis.
Okay, you got everybody's attention. Was that all you had, Big Yahoo? Was that a joke?
Well, listen, it can be an algorithm. You have an AI, so who knows what can happen after this?
Yeah, I think you're trolling. So
Well, Travis, I do think that's
yeah. Anyways, yeah.
no, Travis. I do think it's something that look. This topic was Jesus wise, but I do think he is presenting something against your moral framework there, or your worldview there. It's not along with the topic, but yeah, I actually wanted to test your framework too, Travis.
Sure.
But I don't know if you want to get into that because it's not really the topic.
Well, I mean, if it's related to the topic at all, we can. But I mean, I laid out my very detailed framework of how I measure wisdom earlier, and you know, I like some of us earlier who weighed in on this. I think Jesus could be called, you know, somewhat wise, but there's also a lot of I think unwise things. But I think Robin, did you want to add anything? I see Robin's here now. Or are you too sick to talk? It looks like.
No, but I have no idea how the discussion's going. So no, I'm not going to get involved.
Okay, yeah.
He would have had to have been a very charismatic person.
You'd think so, yeah.
Are y'all still talking?
That would mean he would have been fairly sophisticated in a sense. So I'm going to bring it back. Why didn't he ever tell a joke?
Yeah. Yeah, I see.
I'm
sorry. Are y'all still talking about Jesus?
Yeah, we're talking about it's in the title. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was confused because of the terrorist Sam Harris stuff that was going on.
Well, the Sam Harris was used. The terrorist thing came up when Perry was trying to tease out the metrics, the wisdom metrics that Trey was using. Yeah, so like I mean, yeah, the big ones for me were the destruction of the pigs and cursing the fig tree. Yeah, but anyways, who else hasn't spoken? Anyone want to speak on Jesus's wisdom? We've been going for a while here.
But it's not the worst message in the world.
No, it's not. I mean, a lot of what Jesus was into teaching. I think the intentionality, like if we look at the intentionality of Jesus, something Don brought up yesterday when we were talking about was Jesus good? Jesus, like based on what he believed, you know, with regards to hellfire, just everything that Jesus believed, Jesus's intentions were good. They were great. The evidence, I think, shows, you know, if we are to take the Bible as the evidence, that Jesus had great intentions. You know, I have obviously epistemic gripes with whether or not Jesus was actually God. I think it's almost certainly not the case.
Of course, but it does raise the question that a lot of the stuff was so on the nose.
I don't know. I think some of it was.
Was there a Jesus type figure at one point that would have been that? You know, it would have had that much clarity in thinking in those times.
Well, I mean, what about Confucius, right? We can look at Confucius on the other side of the world.
It just confuses me.
Don't Confucius me, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Well-
There were great thinkers back then, but I'm sure a lot of these guys would have been fun to be around.
Yeah, I mean, but even Confucius had his problems, right? Like the overemphasis on hierarchy, respect for authority over dissent, conservative traditionalism.
Well, like those sounds like stuff that were bred in at an early age, and that you base your philosophy around what you think your reality is. So.
Yeah, but I think you want to see if thinkers are attempting to transcend what might just be traditional bugs. Yeah, Robin, you have something?
Yeah. Okay. I don't know what's been brought up already, so that's why I was kind of. But Jesus told the disciples and stuff that some of them would not taste death before he returned. And of course, I would say that he has not returned. So he told people to sell all their belongings and follow him, not to get married, not to have children, not to start families, and to follow him. So, to me, that doesn't sound like a very wise thing to tell people to do at that time.
Yeah, I mean, if you understand that, and Jesus should have understood this, that human beings have their own individualistic goals and desires. Isn't it wiser to understand that this is the case and try to steer them towards, let's say, healthy ways of pursuing those desires, as opposed to in one particular direction? But I also understand that he believed that he needed to lead people to his father's house and not to hell, right? The hell that he apparently created.
Yeah, that's a story and stuff. But I would say that which it does say it kind of makes me up, because it does say in the Bible that nobody knows, not even the Son, when the return of the Son of Man will happen. So, which is something that has always disturbed the idea of the Trinity to me, because in that quote right there about no one knows except the Father, not even the Son, he is separating those two people, those two persons. And so if he's God in the Trinity, then how is that separate? I've never understood all that. But he did tell people that you had to hate your mother and father, but to sell all their belongings and follow him. To me, I would not say he was wise, especially if he is a god and he should know these things.
Yeah, I mean, if he's a god, the whole incoherence of the fig tree example, and the that it's somehow wise to teach human beings to, or a good thing to teach human beings by drowning pigs, it's just it's not. It's something that I think should be hard to believe, but
yeah, I would say that, like I said, that I think probably the least wise thing was saying that he would return.
But yeah, I mean, when it comes to and again, treating Jesus as just historical Jesus, I mean, everyone knows that I think that the God of the Bible is basically the most evil character ever invented by man, because I think it was invented by man. But Jesus himself, the historical Jesus, the historical account of a man named Jesus, like anyone else, he believed some things, but I do think that Jesus had good intentions. And I think for the most part, minus some critiques, and again, outside of the Trinity issue, he was wise for that era. I think that's where I am. If I'm being courteous, I'll say the man was wise for that era. He was apparently, doing and saying things that were new age and kind of cutting edge when it comes to moral philosophy. And and that's there's wisdom in that. Definitely not perfect in the way he thought about things, the kind of lesson, the way he would go about teaching lessons, and but yeah, I mean that's my general perspective on it.
So Travis, for something to be wise, do you think it needs to pass the test of time, and it had to be widely applicable? Like for, the Sermon on the Mount, for example, or the parable of the Samaritan, it's pretty much like, I would say that they are more like the bedrock of Western civilization for charity, right, and good ethics.
I think charity.
People,
I think charity
right?
existed far beyond, far before that. Charity was going on in ancient Greece, all over the place. Charity would go on in ancient Sumer. Our first, basically what we call our first civilization. Charity is basically as old as man. It's born of our empathy drives. I mean,
the ancient Hebrews had in the Old Testament, it says that you have to leave parts of your crops in the fields.
Yeah, before Jesus, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like, that was they did before that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, man, wisdom, like this is the definition of wisdom that I use as a general academic definition. Wisdom is the ability to use knowledge, experience, and insight to make sound decisions and judgments. So there's a couple things. When you're assessing someone else's wisdom, you kind of want to try to understand what their goals are and see if they are being rational to those goals, rational to those purposes. Rational just simply meaning logically coherent to those purposes. And if they are doing that strongly, if they are doing that in a logically coherent way, then there's wisdom in the way that they are approaching their own discernible goals, articulable goals. Now, then there's the layer of, are their purposes, are their goals wise? So if we look purely at, was Jesus acting, wise towards his goals? In many cases he was, and there are some cases when I think the teaching seemed unwise to me, so he would lose marks there. So it's important to, I think it's important to be able to assess wisdom, like you'd want to assess the wisdom of the purposes themselves, which for me, if there are purposes that are in any way attempting to cause detriments to your own health or the health of those around you, as a general principle, then that would be unwise, because I know, even that there might be some magical case out there, I know that all human beings want health as opposed to sickness. So if a human being wants health instead of sickness, and they are acting antithetically against that purpose, that would be unwise. So when it comes to their overarching purposes, if there are purposes that are causing them to be causing to drive them into unhealth by way of their physical, mental, and social health, those metrics, then they would be unwise in those behaviors. So I do think that, at least those are my metrics of how I look at wisdom, how I look at good, bad, right, and wrong in the world. And the way I try to keep myself rational to my purposes of wanting to maximize well-being for myself and those around me, I use the 6 Penguin virtues and maxims, because these virtues are different ways, different approaches of promoting maximization of health. Fallibilism, good faith, helpful communication, promoting well-being itself, of course, physical, mental, and social health itself, patience, lightheartedness, and inspiration by way of art and science. So I think it's important for people to have systems like you'll have your ethical system, like let's say your moral quest, but then it's important to have ways to keep you true to that moral quest, to keep you rational, to make sure you are living wisely to those standards. And that's why I think a combination of consequentialism and virtue ethics is the right way to go. Now, sometimes when I say, you, sir, have a duty to maximize well-being for yourself and those around you, then we start getting into duties and rules, which those start becoming deontological. So there is, in I would say, all good systems, in the way you practice your ethics, practice your wisdom, there will likely be statements born of those systems that become deontological, like duty-based, kind of like the speed limit is an idea of a deontology, right? You shall not go past this speed. This is your speed limit. Like, these are deontological laws and rules. So yeah, when it comes to wisdom, I really think it's important for thinkers, if you want to start, really creating high resolution standards that are articulable, you need to understand your metrics by which you measure wisdom, how you do that when you go internally to see if someone is being rational and wise within their own system, and then the more meta view of whether or not the goals related to their system are wise at all, with regards to who they are, or with regards to discernible goals for a human being.
And do you think that those wisdom has to be able, like, do you need like a time span for something to be a wisdom, to be one? Like, does it have to be, good as 2,000 years ago, and it's still good for today if we apply in the right context?
Well, I think that, my system, for example, survives that full temporal layer of human existence, in that I would suggest that maximizing well-being, physical, mental, and social health, has been the good life and the righteous life since the beginning, and seemingly will be until our end, if that ever comes. And it just has to do with the fact that we, as a fundamental desire within us, born of our sentiments, prefer health to sickness. I used to, when my philosophy was less developed, I used to say life is preferential to death and health is preferential to sickness. I used to state both of those presuppositions. But there's just too many cases that violate life is preferential to death. There's too many of them. There are so many instances that we could paint up right now where you would prefer death to life if you were in those circumstances. It's not hard to paint those pictures. But try to paint pictures where you would prefer sickness in and of itself, right, to health. Not sickness in service of trying to die quicker, because dying is the end in reference there. But try to think of a human being that could ever come to some, and I'm talking about human beings of sound mind, I should say. But human beings of sound mind coming to some kind of philosophical outlook or sentiment that, I want to make myself sick because I desire sickness, not in service of some sick, twisted God that demands you to be sick. No, just sickness in and of itself is the goal. That's why that presupposition, I think, is so powerful. It seems to be universal through the ages of humanity.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've got my friend Dave Warnock, which I'm sure some of y'all know him. He has ALS, and so like he's been planning to do the death with dignity or whatever when his condition gets bad enough. So, but he has preferred to stay, alive as long as he's able to, like do certain things and enjoy life. So yeah, I would agree that probably in some cases death is preferable to life because it's depending on the quality of the life.
Yeah. I mean, Christopher Hitchens said about North Korea, at least you can fucking die in North Korea and leave that place. Whereas like this idea of hell and eternal torture seems to be no way out, which I think makes it one of the most evil ideas ever created.
I would agree. It's probably the worst single continuous oppression on the planet.
You don't have to go. You don't have to go there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I think.
So, has anybody any ideas with all the social justice stuff and stuff? Any kind of focus on the fact that this shit's happening?
Don't have to go to South Korea or North Korea.
One sec, Perry. I'm interested to hear from Chris and Trey. They just mentioned you don't have to go to hell. So there's there just is no good reason to believe hell exists. I know that people are going to cite scriptures and stuff, and I know you guys both believe that there is a hell. But the fact that it's simply just possible that there's a hell doesn't weigh into my epistemic standards. So unless someone shows me that it's at all plausible, will I ever have any ounce of fear towards that? The scripture has failed to instill even an ounce of fear in me. And, and I think it's what, Robert?
I have no choice. I don't believe in the God. I don't believe in the God. I don't have any choice. If there's a hell, I don't have any choice in it because I cannot choose my beliefs.
I have I think two quick things that I'll say, and this now ties in to what I was going to say earlier, but I do want to hear what Chris wants to say because I think he's very, very articulate. But so I'm just going to be real quick. This ties in because y'all, Travis, you say possibility ought not weigh into epistemic standards. So as you know, I was an infantry officer in the U.S. Army. I was a captain when I left the military. Okay, so I'm going to give you a situation, and maybe this is something that you can chew on and get back to me later. But let's let's take a look at this scenario. A barbarian army surrounds your city. Intelligence reports indicate that they will most likely attack the northern gate. However, your engineers remind you that your sewer system extends beyond the walls. It is possible that a small group of sappers could infiltrate through the sewers, open the gates from within, or destroy part of that wall. You have limited resources. Every soldier assigned to the sewers weakens your primary defenses.
Yep.
So here's a situation where possibility ought not weigh into your epistemic standards. However, if you're a commander in the military, and trust me, I was in the U.S. Army as an infantry officer, possibility, you do have to consider it. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I can respond to this. It's just it's a lack of describing the situation properly and academically. It's not only possible that they could infiltrate the sewers, it's plausible. So that's not a simple a possibility. That's a plausibility. So of course I would consider that. Yeah.
Now, when you have limited resources in a situation like this, and when you're let's say like me, I was a platoon leader.
Yep.
You only have a certain number of soldiers, a certain amount of equipment, and sometimes you're out far from your home base, let's say, or your FOB or whatever. So it's not possible to consider everything. The thing that you do need to have is like 360-degree security. But even then, when you're setting up a defensive position, you have what you consider what your enemy will take an avenue of approach.
Yeah.
And then you only have a certain amount of obstacles that you can set on that avenue of approach. And then you need to overlay your overlapping fields of fire on that. And then you need to set defensive fires on where you are likely to think where the enemy will attack from. But even then, in war, every deception is everything. So the enemy will attack you at your weakest part, at your weakest position, when you are at your weakest. So something like the sewer, it is plausible, but again, you can't account for everything.
Yeah, I agree. We seemingly can't account for everything. I agree with that. I would say that your generals or whoever's ultimately in charge of the defenses are engaging in plausibility calculus with regards to distribution of defenses. And I think that is the wise thing to do in those scenarios. But I'm sure that if I saw the layout in my unlearned non-military background perspective, I'm sure I wouldn't have any obvious disagreements with the calculus and how it's laid out. But I don't think this is a defeater for reserving modal possibility for the modal sphere and plausibility for the epistemic sphere. But
okay, I just wanted to present that to you because
I understand what you're teasing at, by the way, and it's not a bad question. But yeah, I think in a lot of these scenarios, and I've heard a few of them, that people want to say like it's only just possible over here that this could happen. I think maybe even better scenario is like if you know the enemy. Let's say you have good epistemic knowledge that the enemy has no aircraft. Let's say no drones, no aircraft whatsoever. And we're in that same scenario you just painted. And then someone is like, I think we should dedicate 4 soldiers in total to 2 aerial turret defense guns. And then someone's like, why the hell would we do that? What intelligence are you basing this on? Oh, well, I mean, it's always possible that they could get their hands on a plane from somewhere, and the resources are limited in this situation. It's like, show me that this is plausible, then we'll consider dedicating these men to these Tourettes. We're not just going to put them there because it's simply possible that they might get their hands on a bomber or a plane of some kind. It's like, in a situation like that, don't bring that stupid shit to me,
But Travis, this is a plane may be harder to get than some C4, and it's easy to conduct a demolition along a wall. But anyway, I really just wanted to I mean, not tease you with it, but present that to you.
Yeah. No,
but I do want to hear what Chris wants to say.
Yeah, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, hey guys. I mean, I know. Obviously, I'm coming from a perspective of this is a theological standpoint, because that those are where my morals come from. That's where the wisdom comes from. But I mean, I think when we think about hell, right? I know. Most people, they make hell out to be a place of eternal fire, eternal this, eternal that, where the devil reigns and whatnot. But one of the things that I think is important for us to note is that if God is the creator if there is a creator, which I believe there is, and we have heaven and hell, it's not necessary. And we were to look at the scriptures, and we see what hell is intended for. I do believe hell was never intended, right? Hell is never intended for humans. The scripture lets us, scripture is pretty clear, on what hell is for. Hell is for the fallen angels, those who rebelled against God. And when we talk about, when people say, well, God is sending, people to hell, it's more of a choice. Then the reason why I look at that is, if you live your life separate from God on earth, why would you want to share with him in eternity? Right. And that's a choice that you have to make. It's a choice you have to make.
I don't think it's a choice you have to make. I think you believe that, right?
I mean, we can say that, but then if you look at NDEs, right? I'm not sure if you guys have ever looked into near-death experiences of people who are medically dead. Okay, they've been shown to be medically dead. They're able to recount everything that's happening while they're medically dead, whether it be during an operation, whether certain things are happening, and they're having this out-of-body experience, and there's a unified front across what hell is like and what heaven is like. And so when we look at this, I mean, you can't just say this is someone's imagination, because if it's to say someone's imagination, thousands of people imagine the same thing. I mean, what was your explanation to that?
Yeah,
that didn't happen.
I'm gonna read I'm gonna read. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Look up near-death experiences.
I'm gonna read.
There's
Chris,
movies about it.
Yeah, Chris. I'm gonna read the science into the record. But Robin, go ahead first.
NDEs are explained through brain physiology, through like the normal dying experience or whatever. These people are not like clinically dead. Like they are dead. Like they're not brain dead. And the fact that their brain is still doing stuff is proof of that. Like and when you check these out individually, and you go, because you're saying all these NDEs. Go through these NDEs. There are people who go through these one by one and follow them up. And if you want to use those as proof of your religion, then what about the Muslims who actually have the NDE where they see Allah and the Muslim hell and stuff, and then the Hindus that see the Hindu religion. So like I think if you
I would be happy to see if there's any furnished videos of or testimonies of people who do experience the heaven that is portrayed in these other religions, because what I can tell you by far is that when we look at NDEs, the heaven or hell that is portrayed is the heaven or hell that's portrayed from the scriptures,
Okay.
Well,
Because you
from
live
the Bible.
you live in a country that studies these, and you're studying actually the NDEs from this perspective, from the Christian.
Well, as a matter of fact, there are people who don't know the Bible at all, who've never read the Bible, who've never read scriptures, but yet they experience these
Okay.
You don't have
NDEs.
to know
yeah,
the
we're gonna
Bible
look
to
at
talk about
we're
heaven.
gonna let's
Let
stop.
me finish. I have more
So,
things.
so,
Let
so
Robin
back to what I'm
hang on.
talking about
Wait,
here.
Chris, wait. Robin,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
please let Robin respond, and then I'm going to read some information into the record here, and then we can
Yeah.
continue with the NDE
But
conversation.
all of the NDEs aside, which I think are just like the tunnel, we know that we can explain that through that's like the just the process of the brain, like the chemicals going through the brain when it's dying, when it's out of oxygen. But I don't have a choice to go to hell because I do not believe in the God. And so I cannot choose my beliefs. I cannot tell myself to believe in something that I do not believe in. I have to be convinced, and I am not convinced. And I grew up as a Christian. I was 50 years old before I became an atheist. I'm not convinced that there is a God. And so I'm not choosing hell because I'm not choosing my beliefs.
All right.
And that's it.
Thanks, Robin. Okay, the academic consensus is that near-death experiences, NDEs, are real psychological experiences, but there's no scientific evidence that they demonstrate consciousness surviving death or an afterlife. So what is a near-death experience? NDE is a profound conscious experience reported by some people who are close to death, temporarily clinically dead, example, cardiac arrest, or in situations of extreme physical or emotional danger. Common features include feeling detached from the body, moving through a tunnel, seeing a bright light, encountering deceased relatives or spiritual beings, feeling overwhelming peace or love, a life review, reluctance to return. These experiences occur across cultures, although the details often reflect a person's beliefs and expectations. What does the evidence actually show? The brain is usually not completely dead. One of the biggest misconceptions is that NDEs occur. Make sure you guys are muted while I'm reading, or else I'm hearing background noise. One of the biggest misconceptions is that NDEs occur after the brain has permanently stopped functioning. In reality, clinical death, no heartbeat, is not biological death. Brain cells remain alive for several minutes. Modern CPR restores some blood flow to the brain. Residual electrical and metabolic activity may persist. Therefore, the brain may still be capable of generating conscious experiences. Oxygen deprivation, hypoxia. Reduced oxygen changes brain function dramatically. Research shows hypoxia can produce tunnel vision, bright lights, euphoria, altered sense of time, hallucinations. Pilots exposed to extreme G-forces frequently report experiences remarkably similar to NDEs. Carbon dioxide, hypercapnia. Elevated CO2 levels are strongly associated with NDE-like reports. Studies have found that cardiac arrest survivors with higher carbon dioxide sometimes report more vivid NDEs. CO2 can produce feelings of transcendence, visions, out-of-body sensations, bright lights. Temporal lobe activity. The temporal lobes help create body awareness, memory, emotion, religious experiences. Electrical stimulation of these regions has produced out-of-body experiences, sensed presences, mystical feelings, encounters with beings. REM intrusion. Some researchers propose that NDEs resemble rapid eye movement, REM sleep, intruding into wakefulness. This can generate paralysis, vivid dreams, floating sensations, seeing people in the room, supernatural interpretations. People prone to REM intrusions appear more likely to report NDEs. Neurochemicals released under stress. Extreme stress causes massive changes in brain chemistry. Potential contributions include endorphins, norepinephrine. God, I hate that word. These can produce peace, pain relief, vivid imagery, altered perception. NMDA receptor dysfunction. Blocking NMDA receptors produces experiences strikingly similar to NDEs. Drugs like ketamine can produce leaving the body, entering another realm, meeting entities, overwhelming certainty that the experience is real. This is one of the strongest pharmacological parallels. DMT hypothesis. Some researchers have proposed that DMT contributes to NDEs. However, there is no convincing evidence that the human brain releases enough DMT during death to explain NDEs. This remains speculative. What about people who accurately describe events while unconscious? This is the strongest claim made by some NDE proponents. Examples include reports of conversations in the operating room, medical procedures, objects seen from above. The problem is that most of these accounts are retrospective, lack independent verification, rely on memory after recovery, or can be explained by residual hearing, inference, and reconstruction. So I think there's, and let's look at the academic consensus in detail. Current neuroscience supports several evidence-based conclusions. NDEs are genuine subjective experiences, not deliberate fabrications. They can profoundly affect people's lives. Multiple brain-based mechanisms plausibly contribute, including hypoxia, all the things we went through. No reproduction scientific evidence shows that consciousness leaves the brain or survives biological death. Claims that NDEs prove an afterlife remain unconfirmed and are not accepted by the majority of neuroscientists or consciousness researchers. There was one other claim about hell. Well, we can look at that a bit later. But anyways, does anyone have anything to weigh in on with regards to NDEs that might be connected to the topic, or anything else on what's been said? Okay, well, I think we are kind of at TAV time. I want to thank everyone. We are going to be moving down to the tavern, our off-air channel here. I want to thank everyone for today's discussion. I think we will do was Muhammad good, and then we'll do was Muhammad wise as well. But we'll do was Muhammad good first tomorrow. Yeah, well, I'll see you guys in the tavern. Thanks for everyone for contributing. Thank you so much to Chris, who's a new member who contributed a lot today. Really appreciate it. As always, please make sure you're out there maximizing well-being for yourself and those around you. If you're on YouTube, just a reminder to join us on Discord. It's free to join, but be careful. Our server can be addictive.